Good evening, everybody. This is the July 10th meeting of the Nottingham Conservation Commission. My name is Sam Demerit. I chair the Conservation Commission. To my left is Secretary Susan Mooney. To my right is Vice Chair Deb Kimball. To my far left is Paul Meliodas, who was a member.
It's a tongue twister.
Yeah. Over to my right, are Cheryl Smith and Kristen Lamb, who are on the committee, and alternate Liz Katowski. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I guess Liz can sit in for Raylene if until she gets here, if she gets here. Okay, so let's see.
You want to introduce the guests or not?
Oh, yeah, I might as well introduce the guests. We have Mark West, a resident wetland scientist, who's also on the board of Bear Paw Regional Greenways, and Celia Abrams, a former member of the commission who is sitting in to hear some of Mark's remarks and probably talk about the trail mapping later on. Any announcement? I guess I don't really have any announcements at this point. So, with that, we will get into wetlands mapping with Mark West.
Yeah, so I'm not sure about wetlands mapping, whether you all want to become wetland scientists and need training, or whether this sort of started with Sue needing some help or wanting some help in relationship to Shea Concrete. And also, some of you went to a talk by Mark Jacobs, maybe?
Yes, Liz and I went.
Yeah. And he kind of got a lot of information and need to sort some of that information out.
And to know how to interpret the plans that were coming through.
So I got here early and dug out some plans. I think there's some Shea Concrete plans, and I can go over a few basic things. I can answer any questions. I thought the first thing I'd do is have a handout of what should be in most applications. So you guys can take a look at that, because there's so many attachments these days. It's nice if they put that on the cover so that you know everything you need is there. Because the most critical issue is not having, can you share with him? I'll give you after mine so I can read
Okay.
with you guys. And I'll share with
One
you.
else to share, so everyone has their own copy. Doesn't matter.
What can be a big problem is if something's missing. If you don't have all the information you need. And in other words, there's a question on the application about vernal pools or when you're doing a data search. Well, if they didn't look, or if they did the work in the middle of winter, they're not gonna have that information. I looked at one of the applications. Your copy has black and white picture copies. You need color pictures to see what you're doing. Granted, you can go out there and do an inspection, but you need all the information to make a good decision. If you're missing information, you can't make as good a decision. And often, not everybody includes everything, and that's a problem. So just going down this list, the 20 questions, unfortunately, they're working now on their rules and supposedly supposed to get rid of, I mean, the 20 questions is all they really ask. And some of them are pretty basic, and some of the answers you get are like NA, or this is not an important wetland, or things like that. You need full information. They're supposed to transform that into maybe something more scientific, like a wetland evaluation. The state has actually also been working on, and there's been legislation regarding buffers to wetlands. But even the Wetland Scientist Organization apparently shot it down. So, not sure why about that. I don't get involved in the politics as much anymore. I'm sort of doing my own thing. So there's also a Corps of Engineers, USACE Appendix B. And that includes things like requiring a WAC map, or the highest ranked habitat maps. And
Mark, can I back up to like a basic question, I guess?
that's why I'm here.
Yeah, thank you. So when we get these applications, it's usually as a CC from DES, so they've already processed it.
No, that's when you get a permit. Your application, unless, so there's different categories of applications, right?
Because nobody's ever applied through us. Nobody's ever
No,
asked
you
permission.
get copied
Right.
on the application, and the selectman's office gets 4 copies, and a 5th copy goes to the state. One of the 4 copies comes to the commission. That is your copy, and you have advisory rights to every application. So you can ask for things, you can raise questions, and you can send something in right away to request a 40-day review period. So that's your first right to do with any application. If it's a minimum expedited application, it actually requires your signature, and they have to come to you first to file one of those. But every other standard dredge and fill, which it includes anything but the minimum expedited, has to, you all get a copy. And if you send a letter to the state raising questions, they usually include that in a request for more information.
Just in our, can you guys speak up too, like in our experience, like we get kind of, it's like an FYI, and it seems like it's
A done deal.
a done deal, and it's been.
Not when you first
like,
get it.
that we're getting it later than, like, we don't get them right away.
I don't think we do.
No, I don't think we do
At
either.
all.
I think that's the problem.
I
is-
don't think the town
Well,
is
is
getting
the
them to
town
us.
clerk putting it in your box, the date, as soon as it's filed, that's what she's supposed to do, or he, it was Sandy, I think there's another person.
No,
too.
it still is Sandy and.
Yeah,
and Lori.
Sam gets it in the box. And
Mhm.
maybe it's because we meet once a month that
Yeah, I wondered that if once a month.
it
Yeah, you
comes in
can-
right after we meet.
Yeah,
and
you,
knocks it.
you, if it's a timing thing, but you have, time to comment, and if you want, you can check the box and you can have a letter already made saying, we need a continuance because you only meet once a month. Some commissions meet twice a month. But, your ability to comment on that application is an authority, and if you raise a question, and it's a legitimate question, not like, we don't want the houses to be pink, or something like that, they have to give you that information.
Mark, can you explain again, so the difference between anything else besides a minimum expedited?
Right.
So minimum expedited requires our signature.
Correct, because
And-
that has a 30-day review period.
Okay.
And just so you know, they have 75 days for a standard dredge and fill, and they use it. So if you get it a month later, you can still write a letter. You haven't lost your authority to comment.
It's really helpful.
Okay. So the next thing is a
So
USGS
let me
map.
just- we should be getting then, all wetland permits should be coming through the CC as well.
Directly to you, yes. A copy goes to the planning board, a copy goes to the selectmen, and a copy goes to you. And the most important copy is the copy going to you guys.
Well, because it seems like it's been going to DES, and then DES is FYIing us.
Or it goes to
No,
the planning
what they're
board.
they're not FYIing you. If they file an application, and the application is considered complete, and that usually takes less than once a week, a letter is sent out saying, your permit is complete, we may request more information, but it has all the basics to be accepted. That's the letter
They're
you're getting.
giving them a preliminary
Well, what that does is,
Completeness, or-
what that does is it starts the clock.
Okay. Oh, after
that
the
makes
review.
sense.
As soon as that date says it's complete,
Mhm.
the 75-day
Okay.
clock. And I will tell you, being in the business, I'm usually contacted by the DES right around 75 days. They're not getting at it before,
Wow.
okay? So, that's how long it takes. I always like to have an aerial photo. It's not required, but you all can ask for it. And there's a lot of information you can see in an aerial photo, like what the neighborhood looks like, are there other roads? Are there other developments? Has somebody been putting in a gravel pit in their backyard nearby? That kind of stuff.
Do we ask DES for that, or the proponents?
You can ask either. If you're requesting more information, the letter should go to the DES, but you should CC the engineer or whoever put together the applicant.
Yeah.
Because the sooner you engage them, the better. You need the tax map, the abutters list, the abutter notification letter, the receipts, and if the project has impacts within 20 feet of property boundary, so if there are wetland impacts within 20 feet of the property boundary, that abutter has to write a letter of concurrence. So that's an extra issue if it's near the property line. You need letters of authorization. Then you need the natural heritage inventory response. That's required. Right now, they shut down for 3 or 4 weeks, so you can't get any reports. I don't know what happened, but maybe they're upgrading their system, because they have a data check tool. And so,
Mark, what was that called that you need from an abutter if you're impacting within, you need a letter of
concurrence or
Concurrence.
sign off, and that can be complicated to get,
Yeah.
because I have to do it all the time, because anywhere on the dunes, if you work anywhere near the abutter, you have to get a sign off. And some of them, I've had ones where the woman signed off and then 3 weeks later said, I changed my mind. I don't want you to do.
Then what happens?
It gets complicated. You have to talk to
The
them.
person can withdraw their concurrence, I say.
It was an unusual case where they actually, this particular developer had this abutter was worried, she lives on Boar's Head, and she's worried her whole thing's gonna fall into the water. And she's convinced, so, I was at a Conservation Commission meeting where 400 feet down the road, they're stabilizing the slope, and she's worried it's gonna hurt her foundation. So this is the memo you get from the natural heritage, right? It lists all the species and wildlife. It gives you a map, and it's kind of good to check the map, because whoever does the mapping, when they do the data check, if that's not right, you got issues. But they are literally on here saying spotted turtle and how far away it is. Blanding's turtle, banded sunfish, historical
We've never
records.
seen this, ever.
No.
I've never seen that.
It's supposed to be in every application package.
And it's often
Not-
in
yeah,
the
we're not
planning
getting
board development packets, and it was one that I actually
You
requested,
guys,
but Marston was.
you guys need to get them, because they give you the information, they also tell you, 2007, when the last record was. Some of these are like, 1940s, and they don't really consider those. So they're all in here, and they have information, including several pages on Blandings, because
So
of
we're
different
supposed to
sites.
get that with all the major
Yeah, I'm
dredging
leaving this
fills.
list with you. So
Yeah.
you're gonna always have that now. If it's
But-
missing something, but if it's missing something, you shouldn't get that letter that says it's complete.
Okay, so this is what you submit in an application, and you're saying we should get all of it. But
Yes.
maybe DES is shortcutting that because of budget.
No,
No?
Should they be giving, so when they do 4 copies, there's 4 complete copies, or
they
does
have
one?
to be, yeah.
Okay,
Has to have everything,
so each,
okay? This
each
first list,
must
you
have
have to
everything.
have, okay?
It's not
You
like
have
we
to
get
have
the
every one of these.
reduced, we get the abbreviated version or something.
Yeah,
So-
well,
For some reason, we're often not getting.
well, we should talk to, is Sandy the,
Still town clerk.
Still, yeah,
I'll have
yeah.
a talk with her,
Okay,
if you want.
that would be nice, Mark.
So the natural heritage response, the highest ranked wildlife habitat is part of Appendix B, so you're supposed to include it. And bigger permits need a Corps of Engineer 8.5 by 11 plan set. That's not required in every permit. So L you can take off as far as a requirement. It's a requirement of the Corps of Engineers, not of the state of New Hampshire.
So we've been trying to put this information together ourselves.
No, that's not your job. Okay, so the next thing is, on a bigger project, I have a project summary. I have a wetland delineation verification letter. Okay, so the wetland scientist is supposed to stamp the wetland delineation plan. If that's not on there, the state's supposed to raise a red flag. That note on the plan is supposed to say when it was delineated, so you can look on the plan. So I brought this because this is the only project I've had much to do with, and it has a ton of stuff in it because I got involved in the wildlife study. This is the Oak Ridge one, and so usually you have an existing conditions plan that just shows the wetlands, right? And the topography, and maybe where the test pits are. But the notes say, wetlands delineated by GZA Geoenvironmental during July of 2010, in accordance with the federal manual, right? We're also now going by the new interim version of the federal manual that's newer and has newer information.
This
And
is the
it's
federal wetlands delineation.
manual.
How recent is that?
Came out in 2009, but there's now a 2012 edition, okay? Then it's, they usually want the wetlands classified, and they also have a national list of plant species for New Hampshire, so that's how they're using the right manual for the species. They haven't been changing the species that much. The soils guys are changing their versions all the time. I don't know what their problem is, but the plants have stayed the same.
So the national list has a list of what are considered wetland plants for New
Every
Hampshire.
plant has a category,
Okay.
whether it grows in wetlands most of the time, some of the time. So there's obligate, cattail, obligate wetland plant. There's a cattail, pretty much a wetland, unless somebody just dug it up and planted it there. Then there's fac wet, species like sedges, some of the dogwood, silky dogwood, those are fac wet. Then you go to fac, which is red maple, it can be in a wetland, it can be in the upland. Then fac up, red oak, most of the time in uplands. And then upland is stuff like staghorn sumac, what's that, sweet fern. They don't grow in wetlands very much. So that's supposed to be on the plan, and then there's supposed to be a stamp of the wetland scientist, okay? And a lot of time, there's a delineation report. Just a single letter saying, I was out here, this is when I flagged it, this is the kind of wetlands there are, there's a forested swamp, red maple swamp, just some of the basic information is good to have. Then a site alternatives analysis. For bigger projects, a site alternatives analysis is needed. An alternative analysis on this project was, can you build a single cul-de-sac? Can you build 2 cul-de-sacs? That was the alternative. Can it be conserved? But the police and fire required a through road. This was a pretty long one already, whereas this, you can see, wasn't very long. So they required, so the alternative analysis, so there can be an alternative analysis for really big projects. There's an off-site alternative analysis. Why didn't you build somewhere else in Nottingham?
Yeah.
This site is really wet. This site had 19 vernal pools. Why don't you find a place without 19 vernal pools? What? So different projects require different levels.
What are the cutoffs? How would you know whether something requires the alternative?
Bigger impacts. So
Like a Walmart's
the cutoffs
going in or
are
something.
3,000 for minimum. 10,000 is the threshold for mitigation, not the threshold.
Target square feet.
10,000 square feet of impact is not the threshold for a major, but, so from 3,000 to 20,000 is a minor, and from 20,000 up is a major, and over an acre can be a federal individual permit.
So 3 to 20,000 is minor, less than 3,000 is minimum. Once you hit 10,000 feet, you have a threshold to mitigate.
You have to mitigate, so I would say that's the threshold for looking at alternatives. But you can look at alternatives for anything, because the application says, is, the second question of the 20 questions is this the least impacting alternative? So let's take a look at a plan that I
And
pulled
then
out.
mark greater than 20,000 square feet is,
Major.
okay.
So here's an application I grabbed that was another Falzoni one, a smaller one, 6-lot residential Route 4, and, oh. Hi.
Hello.
Hi, Raylene.
I have another question just on the Oak Ridge example.
We're gonna go back to that more.
Like, is this the least impacting alternative, going through 19 vernal pools, doesn't seem like it is, so who determined that it was?
Well, the first question is, what is the need for the project? So once you develop a need, and the need for the project was, they required a through road. So the road, if you were gonna do a road on this subdivision, you had to go through. So the alternative analysis looked at things like how much open space there was, how far we were from vernal pools, and we're gonna look at that. You had to do radius tests to show what % of the vernal pools was being transformed from forest to development. And all those were requirements that tie into that. But you start with what's the need, and then the second thing is what's the least impacting alternative. So here's a more basic one. So this one's off Route 4. These are all the wetlands. And in this case, they show a crossing here, and they show a crossing here. But both these crossings are for future. And the first thing would be, you can cross this narrow wetland right here to access here. Why would you need to cross there? So the first thing you look at is, are they really crossing at the narrowest point? And have they really looked at other alternatives? And if they have future potential impacts, where are those too? So the DES doesn't like you, say you had a road that you built to here, and you had all this upland over here and a stream. They don't like a road stopping at a wetland with the idea that eventually you're gonna cross it. And if a developer impacts on a piece of property, later, 5 years later, you can go back and require cumulative assessment of what he impacted before and tag it to what he's impacting now.
So like this is 6 lot, and if the developer was planning on, I guess, going in or putting in a couple more, I don't know if that ever happened, but.
Yeah, and so this is kind of scary. It's like, why are they there?
Mhm.
And if I was a commission, I'd say, well, it's nice you showed it, but it's understood you're gonna come back, if it's not getting permitted now, and it's gonna be bunched in with all of this.
However, with the planning, our regs state that if there is plans to do that within X number of years, that there has to be a phased plan shown to the planning board. So they can't come in with that kind of plan and say, this is what we're doing.
Right.
And then come back 3 years later and say, now this is what we're doing. They have to show that phased plan.
Right.
Because we ran into trouble with that a number of years ago without having phased plans coming
Right.
in, and then,
And
so
they
now
come
they
back
have
with
to
a
show it,
horrible
even,
project,
even if
yeah.
that's a 10, 12, 15, 20-year phased plan, they have to show all the phases to the planning board.
So the, where did I put, oh, here. So the next thing down on the list is wetland mitigation. So did Shea Concrete have mitigation? Does anybody know?
They had a rain garden.
Yeah, that was their mitigation.
Okay, so they didn't go over the 10,000 square foot threshold?
Just they got close,
9,060 or something like
or
that.
Well,
no, 9,800.
I would say as a commission, you could tell
We
the
did.
state you believe it's close enough that you want mitigation.
We did.
Okay,
They also asked for the plants, species, and the wetland scientist was really.
He said there were some grasses. No, really, I mean, it was.
Honestly,
who was the
honest.
wetland scientist?
I don't,
We weren't really convinced.
Yeah.
Where is the Shea Concrete plant?
Right here, right? This is all the
Part of
plan?
problem with Shea Concrete was that it.
Oh, we don't have a full-size plan?
Yeah, we got one here somewhere, I think.
All right.
so I had asked one of the questions about the
Maybe we can
plants,
use this as an
and the answer
example
that
of
we got was, oh, it's all
incomplete.
within what's outlined by the state. And we said, so like, what plants are in there?
Yeah,
Sedges and what else? And they said, oh, yeah, there's some sedges, but there's grasses here, they're not wetland plants.
I think they were trying to say because it was like a former pasture, that it had plants that were pasture plants. That was the
upside down.
emphasis.
They were saying.
Few sedges with pasture
But
plants.
it is a
I
wetland,
know.
or are you talking about an area that wasn't mapped?
The wetland
Definitely a
scientist.
wetland.
Oh.
Is
It is-
that
it
this
is a
one here?
wetland.
It is a
Others
wetland.
that was filled in.
That's-
It was a
Yeah.
wetland.
I think it
But
was
they-
a pasture,
Oh, up
wetland
there.
turned into a pasture.
And there
There's
were
a
other
seal
wetlands
right
that
here.
are no longer
Over here.
shown on the
Oh.
plan that were shown on
And
previous
Tim?
plans.
And in addition,
Oh, that's what, well, okay.
For where to-
We'll get that up, but we're saying a lot of things at once.
Yeah,
If wetlands disappear,
right, that was the
that's a
problem.
big issue, okay? Because, so a lot of these days, there's towns that hire people to review applications. So like for the town of Newington, when a wetland application comes in, they have me look at it for them and make comments. So there's a lot of people out there doing work, and you want as thorough a job as you can get. And there has to be some reason why wetlands were flagged and then removed. And were there two different delineators? Was there a boss and a,
The
Another
wetland
person.
scientist absolved himself and said it was prior to his time, and the owners would not speak to it.
okay, so.
So it could be that he walked into
We went through
this-
years of work
Didn't realize.
to have wetland scientist certification in New Hampshire. I went to the State House. We went through the ringer, we wrote rules, there's an exam. You have to mentor someone. I'm mentoring a woman who works at the DES, to become a wetland scientist. You have to submit 6 plans that you delineated under the guidance of a wetland scientist. So nobody gets to absolve themselves from any wetland boundaries when they are part of an application.
so what happened with this, and Ed had picked it up, was that there was, in one set of plans, an older set of plans, there was wetland shown
Shown.
on the driveway as you come in off of Route 4. There's a wetland kind of on each side, I think.
Okay, so you're talking
In
about,
this later plan.
you're
the-
talking about
Yeah,
right here.
yeah.
Yeah, right in, where that,
There used to be a wetland.
So there were, in older plans, there were wetlands shown basically here and here.
Is there a
correct?
is there a culvert today?
There was an old culvert going through, wasn't there?
they got the culvert, there's a culvert back further that they wanted to block, well,
Right, there's a culvert.
This culvert?
Yeah.
Hmm, yeah.
I don't
Well,
know
what
if
you
there's
do
a
then
culvert
is you
there.
go look at aerial photos,
We did that.
and did you see anything?
We saw that it was filled in,
Okay.
and it was now grass.
Yeah, so if
Not-
you
not wetlands,
filled,
right.
if a wetland was filled without a permit, anytime after 1970, although they don't really go that far back, I'd say the 80s is a little more
I think
reasonable.
it was shown in 2002, and then
On a previous plan.
Yes, yeah.
in aerial photos too.
There were two previous plans that showed those wetlands.
And they submitted the plans, but then,
Well, the company could have changed, so,
The company, the
no, but I mean,
parent,
how did you
Reorged or
all
whatever.
get?
the parent company did not change. The manager of this local plant has changed.
But,
they were in the files.
so they included in their own filing plans that showed two different,
No, these were
Wetland.
older plans from when they had asked for an expansion, so they did an
oh, so
expansion.
you guys dug out old plans?
Correct.
Well, Paul Colby did.
Good. All right. So who did the previous delineation?
I did not see. Did Ed see the previous plans?
Okay, so I see on here though that they're showing just this one wetland here.
Mhm.
Okay. And this is the one that they didn't know what kind of plants were growing in it?
Yeah. And the question that we asked when we went there was still snow on the ground. We had walked, we were all just kind of standing here in the parking area. And, right, yeah, parking is basically this. And we walked over here because this was supposedly where the rain garden would go.
Right.
And I said, well, we do wanna walk, well, you don't wanna walk over there closer, do you? And so we said yes. And so we went over and looked, and when I looked back, you could see the hole for the culvert here. I said, what is that culvert? The wetland scientist says, I don't have a culvert there. And the engineer said, well, I don't know about a culvert there. So, but obviously there was a culvert there. And then we
12
asked,
inch,
why
yeah.
is there a
It
culvert?
says existing,
Well, it does now because they put it on the plan, because it wasn't on the
Revised
plan.
plans.
oh. You guys are, a lot of alarms went off. huh?
They asked for the.
Ding, 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 ding.
So we said, why is there a culvert there if there's no drainage coming through?
and they were gonna fill in that,
So they wanted to just fill this in and cover this culvert. And we asked about, well, what's the drainage here? And evidently there was some drainage that was coming in here. So now they said they're gonna direct drainage back this way.
well, I don't know, is it going that way or going back towards the road?
Back toward the road.
Back
So
to the road.
this is their development plan,
Mhm.
and they're filling the whole thing?
We don't know yet. CES has responded to them.
And,
Request for more information.
and did you guys get a copy of that letter?
Yes, we did.
Good. Well, that's helpful. Yeah, here's the thing about this. So the first thing is you have to demonstrate your need. And unless I'm mistaken, this is their property too?
Yes, they bought that. That was an additional piece they had purchased.
So the only way you really demonstrate need is to say, and this is why some of these bigger projects like Walmart or Lowe's or those, they say, well, our building is of this size and we need this much parking. In order to demonstrate need, they have to show why they can't use other areas that are upland for wetlands, for impacts. Because this would have to be, well, this can only go here because. Now, I'm a little concerned if this is still an active application, that I'm sort of commenting as a professional on another thing, because I thought this was done. And if I'm not allowed to review somebody else's work without being hired, and then I have to notify them. So I can't go out, if the town hired me and said, we want you to review this. I can't march out there and start looking. I have to call the wetland scientist.
Yep.
We have all this ethics stuff that they want to do. And we've even had workshops on how you review somebody's boundary.
So I mean, we're not really asking you necessarily to review and give an opinion on this. It's just how do we read this? So if we're looking at a project like this, the question that we need to ask is there a need, a specific need to fill in that wetland area
The
in order
first thing
to-
is need, and the second thing is alternatives.
Okay,
And if you have portions of the lot that are upland, the question is, why aren't you putting what you need there? So, those two questions go hand in hand. Demonstration of need. If you demonstrate the need, in other words, we already have this building here, and we can't really afford to build a whole new building over here when all we need to do is add to this building.
but there
It's
are,
like the people who call you and say, when I do my work, I want to build a pool in my backyard. The first thing is, well, do you have room in the backyard? And if there's a wetland in the backyard, can you work around it? How big does your pool have to be? All those questions come in. So the big thing is, they may have ways where trucks come in and all that stuff, but ultimately, if they don't show any use on a part of upland and fill the wetland, there's a question.
Can I just ask, Mark, is this the region where we would see when the wetlands were delineated and what the plants were?
They don't list the plants, they list the plant list that they use.
it's the
But
reference that we use.
a report talks about plants.
But this is the area that we would see.
Wetlands delineated by Tim Forwerda, it doesn't say when,
It doesn't say date and it doesn't say which.
standards or anything like that. But this is the standards,
Okay,
it's all on this one.
okay.
But that has to be on a
But it's not signed.
site map.
No, it is, he signed it
Okay.
right here. Yeah.
Okay, that's helpful to know where to look
Yeah.
Okay.
and.
Yeah, I didn't know this was still an active project, so I just have to be careful
Yeah.
as to
Understood.
how the review
Yeah.
goes and all
Well-
that. And they're building a rain garden, I guess, for mitigation. And, you know, is that really mitigating? If you're going to mitigate wetlands, the state, so let's look at this list down in number 6. If you're preserving a site, you have to have the site you're preserving. If you're, you have to justify the importance of that site. In other words, we're gonna protect this hole in the ground over here. If it has no habitat value, no wetland function, if it doesn't buffer and protect a more important wetland, that's, and we'll get into evaluation later, I don't know how much time you
So,
guys
so when you're referring to this, the site that's your preservation site, so you're gonna affect one wetlands, but you're gonna preserve another wetland, so you're talking
In this
about-
particular project, we impacted wetlands and then protected 98 acres of land on the site to mitigate. Okay. But we also still had to do an arm payment.
So the mitigation should match the disturbance, like you said.
Not
It should
always.
match, or it should exceed the disturbance, and it should be well thought out. And, for instance, in that concrete facility, building a rain garden in the middle of it isn't the same as if there's wooded part of the site, looking at a place where water runs off and treating water before it gets into the natural stream or natural wet.
Because a rain garden doesn't come out in species
No, I mean,
Just
it-
protects
plant
the
it, it's a
wetland.
or. No,
managed.
it protects runoff, that's what they were.
Right.
It doesn't have anything to do with.
Right, so the question would be on that, there's that little finger of wetland, but it's probably connected to a larger
It's
system.
connected to a lot of wetlands.
Yeah, so what is happening to the water that goes into that? How is it being treated? Can it be diverted? Can it be treated better? Can buffers be planted to screen the more valuable wetland? What kind of wetland is it? Is it a forested wetland, or is it a marsh where waterfowl are? Would screening make more sense? That kind of stuff.
But the other, my question is relating to that issue, but from another issue. Because we're having a problem with taking gravel and putting it in, and it has invasive plants like, even knotweed, but ailanthus, you know, and they put it in a wetland to make a wetland garden. So you're actually just sort of,
You're not supposed to plant, or you're supposed to have standards. There's standards in the rules and regulations, so you can go on the DES website,
yeah,
and DES Wetlands Bureau. You can go to administrative rules,
right,
and under restoration and mitigation, they have requirements about the soil you use.
The gravel.
About non-invasive native species. And all those things are in their regulations. And any mitigation has to be monitored.
But that was a question that I had on that
Right.
application, was keeping the other ones connected, keeping them healthy. You know, it was, the applicant was single-minded.
but you don't know where they get the gravel.
That's all
You
they were
you don't,
talking
you don't know where they get the gravel, you don't have any idea. I mean,
But I think Mark was just saying, I guess for rain gardens, they should be putting in clean fill, not contaminated fill.
well,
Right.
I mean, it's, how would you know? I mean, it's like the wetland plants. How do we know? Do we have anyone that looks at the list and says, oh, it's got these plants, so it's a wetland? No. We
Yeah,
They're
if it's a
supposed
rain
to.
garden designed by a landscape architect, it's not gonna be treated the same. And so that's something you can say to the state. You think there should be conditions for this rain garden that include this, and this.
But it just seems
They
like we
actually-
don't really know.
You actually can get soil tested, and the biggest question is gonna be, are there a lot of other invasives on the site? And invasive species management may be a better mitigation than, you know, if they're spreading invasive species, especially if it's impacting the natural wetland.
Mark, do you know of any towns that are about our size that are trying to do this on their own without hiring people? And that have a pretty good
Yeah,
handle?
most of them do.
Have a pretty good handle on how to assess the applications?
Well, I mean,
I'm just wondering if there's
I was thinking it would be great to have your rates.
that too.
Really?
What did you say?
It would be great to ask for Mark's rates.
well, yeah,
Especially if a bigger one comes up like this that can have potentially wreak havoc.
well, in those towns, they, the planning board, like in Newington hires me, not the conservation commission. And, but the commission also has money too in that town, but, a lot of towns do it on their own. And, you know, if you.
What about
go-
like an Epping? I mean, they've had so much development, they must have to hire professionals, like,
No,
No.
I've been in front of them because I got,
wow.
I was working on that New England Dragonway, where we had to do a bunch of restoration.
I've heard about that one, yeah.
But they like those kind of race cars. They're a little noisy. So that list is sort of your starting list. But really, the two most important questions you all can look at the most are the need and the alternatives, and then more information. When was the wetland delineated? Can we have a report of what kind of wetlands are out there? If they're doing an impact like that, did they submit an evaluation of the wetland? A functional evaluation? Was that in the application?
So did they do an evaluation of the wetland as it exists in its current state?
Right, is this it?
Yeah.
So this is the natural heritage data search. So this is your copy, and it does have that,
Okay.
okay? And so it lists Blanding's turtle right next to the site and across the street.
Right.
Did you guys talk about that on the site walk?
No. And actually, that's why I was asking when we were talking about the turtle thing is, my understanding is we don't know where they all are. And we are trying to get information to say, yes, they are here. And I know where some of them are. Obviously, the area on Stevens Hill Road is like got one of the highest densities anywhere. And yet, they go in there with the grader and they've massacred the whole side of the road. And as soon as you try to raise that issue, they're saying you've got to go to the Heritage Program and say, you know, we have this high density of wildlife, but we don't know what's in there even. And what I've been trying to do is collect information.
Yeah.
How many species are on the rare endangered list? And I've looked at the plants, and when we had the extension here, and I asked about rare species, who put together the list of, you know, breeding birds that need protection, and she said, you know, she explained that it had to be rare in New Hampshire.
Yeah.
But actually, there are a whole bunch of species that we have that are rare in New Hampshire, and they're not on that list. And she said, well, we're revising the list. Well, who made up the list? I mean, we have,
Who's providing it, but
The
now-
Fish and Game every few years reevaluates the status of species, and you can go to those hearings up in Concord and comment on them. And that's how last year, or 2 years ago, maybe 3, Blandings became an endangered. It was a state threatened. So I think that's, if there's Blandings nearby, they have to typically, so this is something you all don't usually get. So there's a Blandings hit very close to or on the site. That same report goes to the Fish and Game, and if you have a rare species, you have to contact the Fish and Game and provide them with information before they sign off on the project. Sometimes you all don't get that, but you can ask for that. And in this case, you can say, what additional information did they provide on the Blandings Journal for this project? And you can ask to get that. Because sometimes what happens is the applicant works directly with the Fish and Game, but the reviewer at the DES Wetlands Bureau has to have that. Once he gets that list that says it's there, he can't just ignore that. That has to be addressed.
so we can go to the Heritage Program and ask where all the sites are for Blandings in Nottingham?
No, they only give out those sites
Okay, I just did it.
to
Hit the
impact
button.
projects. The only thing you get for the town is a list of species, and even that's incomplete. Like when I first moved here, I noticed like 10 years ago, they didn't have wood turtle on the list.
Right.
I'm like, they're here, they're right in
We don't
downtown.
have golden wing warbler on the list, and it's actually the fastest declining species, and it's completely gone from the state now. And I've asked over and over, well, why do you have chestnut-sided and why do you not have golden wing?
Yeah, I think instead of talking to Heritage, you talk to the Fish and Game about wildlife.
But they don't have anyone that,
They have reptiles and bunny people, I know. They don't have a lot of bird people.
No, they don't.
They rely on Audubon.
and they don't even tell you who the person is that makes a suggestion. Because they've proposed purple martin from 1 or 2 nestings in Seabrook.
Yeah,
And they will add that species to the list, when in fact it's not declining at all, it's actually expanding.
yeah.
And so my question is, how do we say, and who do we ask? Well, why isn't this on there? Because it's in our area, and it's one of the rarest species, and we are in the highest ranking in the state. So that's why I've been
That's
collecting
frustrating
information.
When
Right.
we're
And
relying on their data, but their
we're
data is 3
relying-
years behind our data.
That's
Ours-
exactly right.
Yeah,
They could benefit from the knowledge that's within the town.
yeah,
But we need to have a sort of a collection information, because we need to be able to say, well, that area does have a lot of, and then we can really do something, but
Well,
the
fortunately,
Heritage
a lot
Program
of-
does not give information back to us.
Yeah.
And it's closed to the public.
Ask this question, so if a report comes out with a heritage report like that, so somebody who gets that at DS now can't ignore that, so do they have to contact Fish and Game
Yes.
and find out more about it? That's the piece that
What,
we
no, what
may
they
not
do
get.
is they contact the applicant
Right,
and they say, we need a sign off or your response from working with the Fish and Game.
okay. So if there's a project that comes through like that, can we see that, can we contact Fish and Game, or can we ask that there is further assessment of that particular site? So it says that there is landing turtles within 1 mile of this particular site. Can we ask that there be an assessment done prior to the development going through, or the changes going through, to make sure that that particular area is not impacting that particular endangered species?
Yeah, New Hampshire, in Massachusetts, they require like a
That's right.
survey to be
Right.
done,
Yeah.
right? New Hampshire doesn't do that much. They rely on the Fish and Game staff. And the Fish and Game, I mean, some people are fairly thorough. So for instance, that Oak Ridge, whatever it was, Mark Kern from the EPA went out with me and looked at almost every vertical out there.
Hmm.
During the time of year when they're laying egg masses, seeing how many egg masses there were. So, and that project was less than 10,000 square feet of impact. So it's talking to the right people, and your power is, again, we started this talk by saying you have to have all the information first. Once you have that information is your power. Your power there is, number one, the need. Number two, the alternatives. Number three, the rare species. Number four, mitigation and protecting wetlands. All of those can be things that are requested, and the DES can't just send you a letter saying, never mind, we don't care about it. So, but you do have to hold them, and it's much different actually when you're dealing with enforcement. They're even more lax on enforcement cases.
Right.
We had a case like that too, and they notified the,
They kind of wait.
violator that they were coming, and then they changed it in the time, and then by the time it gets.
They recovered the area, they tried to put it back.
Huh.
And I think
Maybe you
that's,
guys need a drone cruising that down.
We took photos
Yeah.
of them.
So, I mean, it seemed interesting to me that DES gave notification to the landowner. They were coming to do an inspection for this reason. And when they got there, then stuff had been, they had silt fencing up what was supposed to be, other things like that, when it hadn't been up.
Right, well, DES is gonna consider that that worked, because it made them comply.
True.
That's kind of the way they'll look at
But they already trashed all of the species that lived there.
it. Well, if they retain their impacts, they need an after-the-fact permit. And there is no minimum expedited after-the-fact permit. If you do something as little as, I'm helping a guy, he put a little wooden bridge over a stream that's less than 2 feet wide. It's like an old ditched area, because his kids, the bus can't stop in front of his house. The bus has to take a left on the road, and he has a stream to cross for his kids. Build a little wooden bridge. We can't file a trail permit, a minimum expedited. We have to file a full permit because it's after the fact. So that's something that's required.
Meaning he's already
So if this
put the-
person
They had
still.
already been granted a permit,
Yeah.
but they weren't in compliance because they weren't using best practices.
Right.
We noticed that, a resident noticed that.
Yeah,
Reported
right.
at DS.
Believe me, I've
Gave
seen
them a
all
warning.
kinds of, when I was chair here, at the end of that road, that, what's the name of it here? The end of the longer cul-de-sac.
Mitchell?
Oak Ridge Road. At the end of that road, there's a detention basin, and then it goes down a very steep hill, like 20 feet down to the little river. And it must have blown out more than once. And I went down there, and there was over a foot of sand in the wetland. And it was already growing back in. And since it's all muck, and they can't get to it, they went down there to excavate, they probably made, but, I mean, that was like a major blowout. Somebody designed things. And that's the thing, engineers say, well, this will work, and we're designing it, and it's gonna work, and even when they say the watersheds are gonna stay the same, so their job is to take the existing watersheds, break it down, and try to have water continue to go where it goes at a slow enough rate that it doesn't cause damage. But when you build a detention basin, it changes the ecology. So,
And we're getting bigger storms, more like flash floods and things like that are happening.
You know, this last one had almost 3 inches in less than an hour.
yeah, that was a doozy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and actually, you can see all the changes, but, I mean, it's,
And that varied, I mean, because some people had
It did.
close to 3, we had 1.5.
yeah.
We had
it was very
3/4. We had
local,
3/4.
And we had a lot right up there, and the only reason I know is that they had, Lauren and Peter have a rain gauge, and it's a time thing where they can actually really show that. But you see these things come in, and they're really powerful, a lot of lightning, and bam, and then, they're over pretty quick.
Yeah.
But everything responds to that, and the way that they're grading and doing all these things now, you can see the effects, and it's all filling in all of these natural wetlands.
Yeah, I actually went down and talked to John about he's retiring.
Yeah,
And
that's
he's
what
a
I,
Sweet guy and a
Yeah.
hard worker.
yeah,
But I asked him to regrade that road so that the water doesn't go into the beaver pond side. It at least goes to the other side of the road and
yeah, they
settles
tried to do that.
before, he did change it, so.
Yeah.
so.
Isn't
But on these roads, he's got the town telling them they're not safe,
That's right.
and what he
That's what
does
it
is
is.
he built them
Battle.
up and wider.
Hmm.
But that can even create pools and wetlands, and I'll tell you one thing, in any other town, there would be guardrails all over the place. You drive down towns where there's a 6-foot drop all the time on our roads, and that's just the way it is.
There's a lot of studies.
In other towns, and some towns, I know, like South Berwick many years ago, their whole big thing was, we're gonna pave every last road in town, and they did that.
And
So we have some towns all towns have different priorities, but,
But the coarser sand, a lot of times, the material on these, in
Goes plus or
Nottingham,
minus.
compared to, it's interesting, Route 125 is like the line in this part of New Hampshire between gravel and hard pan soils and ledge and outcrop and silt and loam. So you go into Lee, and that's why they have better ag soils. It's more silty and loamy. You come over here, it's more gravel. So a lot of times that gravel just, it'll drain, but then it just stops. It's the fine material that changes water quality. So, we've gone an hour. I can tell you have a lot of questions. I live in town, and I don't mind coming back, and I don't mind, like I said, finding a site where we can maybe even go out and do a site walk and learn a little on the sidewalk. It can be after the fact, okay? The subdivision is built, but what are the issues, and, what are ongoing issues? The only other thing I was gonna talk about on here was, because I don't think, at some point, I don't think I'm gonna try it tonight, I have a quick and dirty wetland evaluation. And it really gives you some basic things to understand the function of wetlands. Because you can sit there in a meeting and you have a wetland scientist say, this wetland is not important, period.
Yep.
Or you could have somebody come in here and give you so much information, you don't understand the shoreline stabilization characteristics of the stream. But this is sort of a real basic certain things are present, it tells you something and you can figure it out without, like the New Hampshire method has 53 sheets for one evaluation. And
Wow.
your commission could get kind of overwhelmed if you were evaluating 12, 15 different wetlands and all that stuff. So maybe we'll do that later. What I was gonna say about, okay, what I was gonna say about this, because it's an important part of, we live in an area that has a lot of vernal pools, okay? So in this case, I got involved to do the wildlife study. They had done a vernal pool survey, but they tied it to series of flags. And so here they've already done all this work. They filled out data forms for each pool, okay? But they didn't identify that the most important step I did from square one was, where are all the pools, and let's get a number for each one. There, I've reviewed projects, I reviewed a project in Rye, and I can tell you there's these wetland boundaries that, I found 33 locations where the wetland boundary was incorrect. And when you're a wetland scientist, you do something like an arm's length. If their boundary is within like 5 feet or 6 feet, you know, we don't move it a foot. They had wetlands that were disconnected that were connected. Wetlands that were disconnected by woods roads that were connected. Okay? And a wetland scientist and his certification, his or her certification, is tied to the rules. And you are not allowed to go out there and say, oh, look at all that fill, it's right next to, it goes from fill to cattails. That's interesting, I'll just tie my flags line. If you see stuff like that, you're required to look at it. You are required to raise questions. You're required to look at aerial photos and determine whether a wetland has recently been filled. And so that's a requirement, or your stamp can be in jeopardy. Okay? And there are people who will do crazy things. I had an entire wetland and wildlife report be plagiarized by a scientist down in a town. He just went to the town hall, found my study, word for word, even the misspellings. My secretary had spelled it white-beaked nuthatch instead of white-breasted nuthatch. I mean, they were all in there. But he was on his last legs. He moved to Florida, and we pulled his stamp, but he didn't care because he was gone. It was on his way out of town. But they actually said, the AG's office said, you have to prove that he impacted somebody financially. So people are trying to get away with things all the time. There's good wetland scientists and there's not so good wetland scientists, just like everything else. So, like I said, we had to know, if there's a vernal pool on the site, and they say, oh, it's over in that wetland, you want the vernal pool mapped on that plan and located properly on that plan. And which vernal pool is it? And you want the data to match the pool. Because it isn't any good doing a study if you don't know where the heck they're talking.
And they're also required to report all the vernal pools that they find, right?
As part of a wetland permit, you have to, but you're not required, if I'm on a walk
Yeah,
looking at a piece of land with somebody and I find a vernal pool, no, I don't have to report that to the state.
but if they're doing an application, they have.
Right, but the state doesn't keep track of all the vernal pools.
So, but if they're doing a wetlands impact on a development, and they're finding vernal pools, and they're trying to figure out what the wetland impact is of that project, they need to map those wetlands.
They need to map the wetlands and the vernal pools, but say you're over here and 1,000 feet away, you're not doing anything, and there's a vernal pool over there,
Right.
you may not be looking at it. The other thing is, these forms, okay, so they have vernal pool forms, data sheets, and I think Mike Marchand just redid the vernal pool thing. They did a thorough job. Wood frog, amphipod, mosquito, black fly, caddisfly, isopod. So all these things are on there. And the more aquatic insect species diversity, potentially, that's gonna tell you something. When I find a lot of caddisflies in a wetland, and if it's a vernal pool, you know, if they didn't find those wood frog egg masses, were they looking close enough? How close they look? This guy even puts how many dips he did. So, information, again, if you don't have all the information, you're not gonna know.
I have a quick question. What is the role of the Lamprey River Advisory Committee in reviewing wetlands permits for DES in this area?
The Lamprey River Advisory Committee is, they are allowed, like you, to be a consultant or to comment on.
So they're commenters, but they're not doing a review for DES?
No,
No, DES, okay.
no. And they're usually focused on water quality. So like, for instance, the steps that we built at the Bear Paw,
Yeah.
that got reviewed by them, and they made some suggestions, and I took them to heart, because one of the guys on the board doesn't like, it was gonna be granite steps with sharper angles, and he didn't like that, so it's all stone, natural maybe. So what might make sense is for me to come back another time, like your next application,
It certainly would help.
and go over the basics with you. But again, I can't really review other people's work, okay?
But you can help us to understand what we should be looking at
Right.
and how best to deal with the situation.
Well, you were right to
But the-
raise a lot of red flags on that
Seems
one.
like, yeah. I
And it
mean,
looks like
ask
you
the
raised the right
questions.
questions. I don't know if you talked to them about blandings, but that would be.
No, that wasn't
We
included.
didn't.
You shouldn't feel, you should feel like you can always send a letter to the DES. Until that permit is issued, don't feel like, oh, we got our shot, we're done. The worst they can do is say it's too late. So, you can send in more than one letter.
I also think we should spend more time looking over, I think we're always rushed, and so we don't, not all of us look at the complete report. And so it was there, but we didn't all see it because we rush right into the maps or whatever, and there's not
You know,
enough
now
time,
you
so
have this
spending
as
more
like a
time.
good outline.
Yeah, so now having
To
this
see what's
checklist, we can
missing.
say, oh, let's look at this, or did we see? So we know what to be looking for. And a lot of times, they probably are buried, and it was buried in this application, but we don't always see
Clarify
it.
one more time, so we are concerned about ecology and wildlife and not just drainage. So when we see like a Blandings flag, DES, you said will contact Fish and Game.
No,
Can we
the
also-
letter, that memo goes to the Fish and Game, and it says right on that memo, you must contact the, Kim Tuttle at the Fish and Game.
You can see that
And so the applicant has to contact
there.
Okay, so
them
the applicant.
and get their input.
Because DES flagged it and told the applicant.
So
to have
I have a site I'm working on with Blandings Turtles in Londonderry, where Mike Marchand has commented on it. He commented on the language governing the open space. He commented, they have a whole list of things, if you did the work near the vernal pools, where the road is passing near vernal pools, you had to have somebody like me on site. If you did it in the middle of, in the off-season, you don't need somebody. And so they have a whole set of plans. They even have things like, a whole, you know, the type of welded plastic you can use on slopes,
every
so
site.
snakes don't get trapped.
So
The
we-
type
Very
of catch
complete.
basins, the
What's
type
there?
of curbing.
We're
You're not
just-
allowed to use vertical curbing with turtle habitat. You have to have Cape Cod curbing.
So how would the loop
Mm.
circle back to us?
And they had
You
a
don't
couple
usually see that,
Blandings
but you
here
have to
killed.
ask for it.
They had, those
So we
letters are
should
exactly
ask
each
DES.
one.
You could ask DES, have they, has the Fish and Game commented on this project? And can we see those comments?
And another thing is, like, we worked with Mike, put up turtle signs, and we know that Nottingham is a hot spot for Blandings, so
Yeah.
can we also contact Mike if we see a red flag or a possible?
Yeah, he, I think on,
Or to see.
some
how
of those,
the
they're
overall
careful about
plan-
how they do it, and like, I reviewed, the Northern Pass and also the, Seacoast Reliability Project, and with those, because of FERC and the, whatever they call it, the whatever it is, the Site Selection Committee, or whatever they do there, that takes away the power of some of these fish and game reviews.
Are you aware that?
Because we need power!
And we also need specialists in some cases, because how, wetland scientists are on all the same level. They're really not. I mean, if you're looking at macrofauna, that's one thing. You talk about mink and a lot of those things and fishers. But when you get down to smaller groups, I mean, really, how small can you go? Are you aware that there's a little damselfly that only lives in vernal pools? It's the only place it breeds, and it's called Inalagma vernale. It's a little bluet, and it's in a lot of these vernal pools. And you can put that on a report, and it will have federal level protection.
Well, that's where so.
And Fish and Game
Right.
doesn't know
But-
that.
So that's where
Yeah.
all of these permits are also, we have something called the State Programmatic General Permit. So the Corps of Engineers reviews every permit over 3,000 square feet, okay? Everyone, even dunes where they don't have jurisdiction. So if I do a permit for work near in the dunes, and that person gets a permit, it says right on that permit, you must contact, within 30 days, you'll get your sign off from the Corps of Engineers, and I have to contact them and send them the map and say, we're not touching any wetlands, you don't have jurisdiction. But any other wetland impact, the Corps has jurisdiction, and the Corps is the lead agency reviewing,
Right.
but the Fish and Wildlife Service and the EPA also have comment. And with the BAC, for example,
The BAC.
you have to do the, a review and make a determination, and you either have to do a time of year restriction on the project. So right now, you can't go out and cut for a development right now, unless you've done a bat survey and proved there are no bats. So that's where the Fish and Wildlife will help you a lot more. And they have an office in Concord, and that's who you want to contact, just to find out what you can do. They have biologists, and you want to talk to them, because they have the authority over federal.
And you have to ask, you have to go to them and ask them who the specialist is in that particular group.
Yeah, so that's where you have to go. And don't be afraid to call anybody. The worst they can say is, sorry, I can't help you.
Mark, before you run off, will you send us an electronic copy of this?
Sure,
So we can make copies as we need to?
sure.
Now, this is very good.
Yeah, it could be
Thank
like a checklist
Yep.
and what they're missing. And yeah, reviewing the natural heritage stuff is very important. And nobody gets to slide on it.
Yep, and I think having that we keep with each of the files is.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, do we have all this? And then we can look for it. No, okay, let's check.
They also have checklists too, and their website has a lot of stuff. So it's worth looking at.
The
there.
DES?
Yeah.
Okay.
They have fact sheets and, you know, a variety of stuff.
Wetlands.
And of
So
course,
it's actually very helpful to hear from you about the flow of things and then what the Conservation Commission can do. 'Cause
Yeah.
on DES, that information is lost.
right. So you wanna get the permit as soon as you can, and if it's a big permit like this and you do your first review, you send a letter right off saying, we need more time, and you can have 40 days. But you have to get that 40-day letter in within 10 days or 12 days
From when?
from when.
We received the application?
When the town clerk signs it.
I see.
That's when that
So
clock
that's
starts.
key.
So 10
And
days.
then the other
and
clock
that's what-
starts when the state accepts it.
And that's maybe why we're missing some things if we only meet.
but I don't think we get some of the complete applications either, so
No, not
we
at
would get
all.
them through the planning board or whatever.
Okay?
Thank you, Mark.
I'll come back again and maybe we'll do a active thing, and then maybe if you can think of a project you wanna do a site walk on.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you, Mark.
Thanks, Mark. Okay. Hi, Sue. Okay, I see John Janenko has showed up, so. Next on my list, I put pending easements. We're gonna do that first, or we're gonna do trail mapping first?
Well, how about pending easements for
Okay.
John?
Okay,
These are the two I took out. Can you guys refile them?
Sure.
Or you want me, I'll go through them. I know where they came from.
Okay, thank you, that'd be great.
Thank you, Mark.
Oh, it looks like the WRP is going to approve my 80 acres of wetland and all that good stuff.
good.
This is very brief
So
for,
speak the 80 acres that you had put in the application for.
right?
Previously,
So that was the old one that was
Yep.
in limbo for the long time, and now
Yes,
it's
and-
finally come through.
Yes.
Well,
Okay.
he had to reapply, but, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
wow.
I mistakenly thought that once I applied, that was good. Apparently you have to apply every year,
Okay.
so I lost a year. And this is for the 15 acres for farm easement. I apparently this week have been unable to use the phone or email or anything because I've been trying to get this to you, so I decided,
Well, I got the message today,
Yeah.
the phone message, but I had to run right out.
yeah, okay, so basically it says, in exchange from the town for farm easement of 15 plus or minus acres, map 9, lot 10, I would like 50 grand, I'm not using the words that are here, and removal of hunting from the 107 acre map 9, lot 11, wildlife safety zone that Maggie and I gave to the town in 1993. Seems to me not very safe for wildlife if they're hunted.
Okay.
What's the acreage on that original one?
107 acre,
107
map
acres?
9, lot 11.
Yeah, I got that.
And here's one without my signature, unless you want my signature on that
Okay.
one too.
I think signature of both is a good idea.
Yeah, we're still waiting, apparently I haven't heard back from Bear Park, because apparently the price of the
Good job.
Process?
surveyors has gone up, something like that, so I haven't gotten
Yeah.
back from them on
Yeah.
that at this point.
Well, depending on what they look at, in order to increase the value of this 15 acres, there's enough frontage for 2 lot sizes.
Yeah.
And then a drive to get to 2 or 3 more lots.
No.
So that's. if you-
John, is this 15 acres a completely separate lot, or this is an open field part of a larger parcel?
It's the latter. However, the rest of it is already under WRP.
Okay.
This all abuts the,
Right, because that's the one thing that's important for us, is to know what the road frontage is with the possibility of how many lot subdivision with a 200-foot road
Well,
frontage.
it's got 500 feet.
500 feet of road frontage, okay.
So that'd be 2 200-foot lots, and then you could have a driveway back to,
Right.
a couple rear lots or something like that.
Maybe.
I don't think so. You can't do
Backlot subdivisions
bad
are
lot-
really.
No,
lot
no
subdivisions.
those now?
No.
They've
been
been
done
done
for
for a while, there's been a few exceptions, but.
You could put in a loop road. That would be about it. I think the 2 frontage lots is reasonable.
Okay. So, somebody want to make a motion?
Sheila, do you have the spreadsheet there that might show, the value per acre
I
of
don't,
other types of,
no, I don't have something that showed value per acre for other. So, if we wanted to look at, Fernald was 95.5 acres, it was 250K.
mm-hmm,
And on that one, estimated 20 house lots.
oops, turn it on.
So in that particular case, you're looking at 1250 per lot.
12.
12,500?
Right.
But we also know that farmland is worth a lot more than wooded
Correct.
areas.
And I wanted to, like, I always think it's good to go down the priorities that the
Mhm.
parcel meets. So
Mhm.
preventing those house lots, but then connectivity
Yep.
Yeah,
to
to
a large
Yeah,
parcel.
Yeah.
Big
Yeah.
piece.
The farmland, preserving agricultural heritage, meets a lot of the priorities that we've identified.
Yes, John.
I have roughly 250 acres. When this gets put into farm, the only thing that's not protected is the house lot.
Yep.
Because the WRP thing has four different pieces of property
Yep.
with that.
I just think it's so
So-
exciting to have such a
So out of the
biodiversity
total
to
250
wetland,
acres, how much of it is
farmland,
actually preserved?
Well, it will be,
Everything except the house lot.
Oh,
is
that's what I thought.
is what will be preserved
Will
with
be.
with the
240
upcoming,
something,
WRP, is it? Yeah. And the,
counting all of it.
and then this,
Big-
this one section out of this lot here that isn't protected.
Yeah, it's 30 acres for the WRP.
There's also a Blinden's turtle sighting on 15 acres.
On the 15.
Okay.
Oh, that's good then.
Yeah, I saw it when I was mowing 2 days ago. I saw blandings wandering around in the field.
Yeah. Yeah,
So-
they've been moving.
So here's an example, so approximately 20 acres is what the conservation fund targeted on the Sweetster property, so that's what our funding was going for.
20 acres?
For the amount of money that we paid towards that works out to about $3,400 per acre, and if you multiply that times John's acre, it just comes up to $51,000.
Yeah, that's what we were looking for. That sounds good.
So it's in the ballpark of our previous projects.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And John, you're doing 30 acres through WRP, so they're gonna fund.
That's already, well, the 30 acres is already done. It's the 80 acres on the other side of the road that's
14 acres and
this.
4.7 acres and 2.3 acres, which is part of this next WRP.
Okay, this is the one he did way back when.
Yeah, no, I remember, it
Yeah.
it's
And
great.
then this one here is roughly 2/3 is WRP already. This is the new WRP that he's going through right now.
And
then-
where's the
and then
15?
what- The 15
That's
is,
what I meant,
15
that
is
what
in
John
here.
is-
And I think that 15
already-
abuts, does that abut the existing parcel that we have hold an easement on? Is it- I was thinking of,
The original.
If you look at the shape of the WRP that exists, 30-odd acres, it's a very strange shape because I didn't want to lose a pond.
yeah,
So there's this big wide thing, and then it squeezes down to, I think, 6 feet. And so there's only 6 feet separating this lot and,
Oh, okay, but it does, so it does abut,
Not quite.
but not quite by 6
But
feet.
it's- but it's all
by
by
6
6
feet,
feet,
oh,
it's
okay,
6 foot
okay, it
gap.
comes within 6 feet of the
Right.
existing one.
Okay.
Okay, I understand it now.
What I wanted to get across is that John is also exhausting other means of funding to
Yeah.
preserve and not just going to the Conservation
Yep.
Yeah.
Commission, which is awesome. Thank you, John.
And the reason for that is to have less restrictions on this piece of property in terms of future use as an agricultural land,
Mhm.
which is pretty critical.
That's important, that's important.
Can I see that piece of paper? No, the letter from John.
The only thing you didn't comment is whether or not knocking off the hunting being allowed on the original 107 acres. I'd like that off that.
So
So no
change
hunting?
the original easement with 170 acres that allowed hunting to
No hunting.
107.
7 acres, so it says, in exchange for the town having a farm easement on 15 plus or minus acres,
Would you like?
map 9 lot 10, I would like $50,000
Which
and
is-
removal of hunting from the 107 acre map 9 lot 11 wildlife safety zone that John and Maggie gave to the town in 1993. It seems not very safe for wildlife that can be hunted. And is that also where you have bunny?
Yep.
Yeah,
It's also
so, to me, I mean, we can make that recommendation, I don't know whether that has to go to the Board of Selectmen, because the town.
Who do we
town-
hold
The town
the,
owns it.
the town holds
on
the
it. So we're
easement.
making a change to an existing easement, and that
Making
will
change to
probably
it.
require legal review.
Yes, we need legal review on that,
Right,
to change the, put a codicil to the deed.
yeah, correct.
Yeah, change the wording. And that has to go separately, I think, to the Board of Selectmen.
Right, and that would have to then be amended and sent to the Registry of Deeds as an
Mhm.
amended easement.
Beyond that, you had shared safety concerns as well in that area.
I might have, I don't remember, I mean, some people
Well,
do
just
some
if we
stupid
make our
stuff, as they
recommendation.
do, and like I have seen people wandering around with hunting colors on the bunny land part, and that's suspicious.
Well, I do that, but I'm not hunting it, so I won't get shot.
It's during hunting season, right?
Yeah, the
yeah.
restriction is you're supposed to wear blaze orange.
Yeah, if they might, right, be worried about somebody hunting.
So the thing is to make a motion to approve this pending,
Well, do you want to make, I would recommend two motions.
Right.
One for the 15 acres,
Correct.
straight up, and then another motion to petition the Board of Selectmen, the Select Board, to approve a change in the conservation
at the
deed
request of the property owner.
and the Conservation Commission.
At the request of what property owner?
John?
But he doesn't own that property.
Yes, he
Yes,
does.
He owns it.
The town
He
owns
owns
the
it.
easement.
Owns the, but he owns the, right.
He owns the
okay.
property. And it's really the
Just the easement
property
that the
owner and
town-
the fact
right.
that that piece of property was donated to the town, was
Mhm.
not purchased by the town. Then that request from the property owner really should be granted, because
Mhm.
we are simply the easement holder and there was no exchange of funds for that particular.
Sam's looking up the easement deed.
Are we making a
So are you
motion
making
here?
that motion?
Yes. we will.
Are you gonna make it?
It says.
1980, was it 1984, John?
Whatever date I put down.
1993.
If you are, Cheryl, do you wanna put based on qualities?
And it's on the tax map, just work out that number.
Oh, because this is the deed, conservation deed.
He's got it.
The grantor, okay, the grantor, that's you, reserves the right to post against hunting and against access on agricultural
Okay,
cropland.
so then I'll say,
Yeah.
So
you
it's
can
already
Just
been
post.
okay.
Okay, There we
So
go.
then we don't
Very
need-
good.
We don't need
No?
that.
Okay,
So you can just put up your signs.
I have it.
Hunters will be shot on sight.
Yeah, but he can't hunt there.
That's true.
That is not,
Scalded.
that's not a funny to say.
So the property owner has to post the land?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
If-
Has,
Yeah,
has
Even
the
though-
right.
Even if it's under conservation easement?
That's what the deed says,
Yes.
yeah.
The property owner has to
restriction.
post the land.
Thank you, I forgot.
And if the property changes hand, then the new owners have to post it?
If the new owners want to remove that or keep it, they can do either.
On conservation easement land, they can
Yeah,
remove it?
yeah,
Because
unless,
you
unless it's
still
spec-
To the
own
owner.
the property unless the conservation easement language itself specifies that the land has to be open for hunting.
In those cases, a lot of times if there's a bond for town, and in order for the town to adopt it or something, they put that into, you know, if the town was funding a major easement, that might be put in.
Right,
But
but in
this
this
is very
thing, if
different
it's,
in
if
that
it's
it's a-
already said, if the land gets sold,
Well, in the spirit of this
Then I-
discussion, I'd
then
like
it-
to have it removed,
Like to have what removed?
the hunting, from the 107 acres. Because what Sam read is that
you have the
You
right,
have
You have
the right.
permission to post,
you
right.
you have the right to post.
I also had the right to say there was no hunting on that piece.
so on the easement, you could say there is to be no hunting in any future, by
Right.
any future person on this
But you
property.
have to put that in the deed.
Right,
Yeah.
then that's the piece that you wanna put
So
in.
if that's really, really messy, if it's not, I'd try to.
I can't imagine that it's messy, it's just a matter of stating.
Well,
Yeah,
yeah,
but
yeah.
also going through the
Right,
formality
right.
and paying people and filing with the registry of deeds.
Yeah, it's-
But worth it, it
say
means
well
that
worth
it can be
It would be worth
no
doing.
hunting in perpetuity, not
In
just-
perpetuity, that's right,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
what you
but
want.
Could the
Right.
landowner themselves
Wait, let-
hunt
let
on
Sam
it
read
if
that
there was some
piece out loud.
explosion of whatever, some, you know, let's say there was a wild boar that got on your property and you wanted to get rid of him, and now you have, I'm just putting that out there.
Yeah, there's a little bit more to this.
Sam?
Yeah, grantor reserves the right to,
Wait, let
Wait,
Sam read this.
grantor reserves the right to post against hunting and against access on agricultural cropland during planting and growing season, but only with respect to annually harvested crops and on forest land during the harvesting of forest products or during establishment of orchards, tree plantations, or Christmas trees.
Right, but that
Okay.
doesn't say no hunting in perpetuity.
I just want to raise the question, 30 acres of the 107 is now rabbit habitat. The rabbits haven't been put out there yet. And you might think about what would happen once the rabbits are there. Do you want to kill the coyotes or, you know, there might be circumstances that arise.
Right,
That's
in the,
interesting.
for wildlife management, and that's where I had, right, so think about wildlife management,
Doesn't say that on that.
to
so
protect the
that's-
If you
species,
kill the
sometimes you
coyotes,
have to.
they're just gonna come back,
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, predator control,
That's
a lot of,
Yeah,
a lot of predator control now is, the biologists are really saying that they're there for a reason and that they maintain a certain level of population once
Or
it's
you let
there.
Mama Nature.
So if you try to take the predators out,
Do
then
whatever.
they,
I think the rationale that the land, the owner can post that land.
Yeah.
But that implies that if
Well,
that the next owner can
I think the next, I think,
not
I guess
post
you
it
could
and
post it
allow
like,
posting.
no, other people are coming on to hunt on the property, but probably it would be open to the landowner themselves, just like anyone, you know, could, you know, for purposes of some, whatever, it's an outbreak of some,
Whereas, is if you take that and post
Overpopulation.
that there'll be no hunting in perpetuity on the land, that, I mean, that does remove the possibility for maybe even your own hunting or the
better to
landowner's
control.
own hunting.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
So you may want to put in there,
The homestead or something.
yeah, for something.
And I probably have to
Thinking about
get
all the possibilities of what can happen with, especially if there's an introduced species that's gone awry. I mean, I just think about the wild boar, which can, you know, I mean, those type of things that can
Sam,
go on.
more.
Okay, no, it would take probably a lawyer to read this thing, because it reserves the right to post against hunting and against access on agricultural cropland during planting and growing season. But that, is that,
No,
No,
that doesn't
they're
include, they're two separate things.
there's two separate things, so,
They're two separate things.
You can post against hunting, period.
right, understood, okay.
And then any pedestrian can be posted from
Yeah,
entering
and
during sensitive times.
he also has the right to post against vehicles, motorized or otherwise.
Mhm.
That's right.
And in the future one, the 15 acres can also have similar wording in terms of posting, et cetera, if there's agricultural activities that,
Well, you've seen the signs I have up
Right.
that say,
Right.
come enjoy it, no camping, no fires.
No hunting.
no hunting."
right, I think that's adequate, you can post it and leave it posted.
So it allows the next owners to allow hunting if they so choose.
If they so choose.
I just have to live a few thousand years.
There you go.
And the likelihood that someone in conserved land will want hunting or not, that I guess depends upon
Yeah, it
Property owner.
depends on the
Yeah.
person. They may not want.
the. So I'd like to make a motion
Shooting close times.
that the Conservation Commission expend the requested $50,000 from the Conservation Fund for 15 plus or minus acres, map 9, lot 10, owned by John Terninko on Case Road.
Do you need to know that the trust fund is supposed to meet, or is that okay with just John Terninko? It's a John Terninko trust.
Okay, John.
Okay, that's
So that
good.
is a John Terninko trust on
Okay.
property located on Case Road.
I second?
It's been seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain?
Thank you.
Welcome.
Welcome, John. Thank
So
you.
happy.
Thank you.
So what has
We
to
are
happen
too.
now, John, is that we have to take this to the Board of Selectmen and there has to be a public hearing
Yep.
on it?
Yeah, but it'll come probably when I get everything from Bear Paw about the final amount that's got to come out of the fund for that.
Yep.
You know, this is in addition to the, whatever the, what do they call it, easement transaction costs, I guess.
Now, is this the employee survey, this one, or is this one of the ones?
This is, according to Bear Paw, he was originally estimating the total cost about, is that the one, 4,400, I think?
Well, I don't know if this is true, but I have a survey for the whole piece of property that was used for the 30 acres. And so it should be good.
Yeah,
But they'll still have to get the bounds for the 15 acres.
well,
But what I'm saying is
it's
all
already
labeled. All those dimensions are on the plot.
on the two,
So they have the whole 40
15 acres were
Right.
already.
45
and
acres, yeah.
there's 30 acres.
Well, Bear Paw should be able to,
Okay.
if you
Okay,
provide Bear Paw
I'll
with that.
call up and I'll bring
Yeah.
my map.
Right.
Okay.
Maybe if they see everything that's been done, they'll have a clearer
They will
picture
remind
Okay,
and realize.
okay. Do you need the number, or do you have it?
I have it.
Okay.
They have my number too.
463 9400. Okay,
Right,
Thank you,
because
guys.
we
Okay.
actually were not
Thank you,
given a
John.
survey cost for this. It's a TBD, so there was
oh,
never a
oh,
price.
oh, was it TBD?
Oh, I
Oh,
thought,
it
no, I
was
thought
part
we
of-
did get one.
No, I've got the thing right here for Taninco. The survey is a TBD.
Oh,
And then we knew that
Oh, okay, so it's
Yeah.
4,400 plus the survey.
Correct.
Oh, okay.
And the survey for the Kennard is TBD. The only one that has an actual survey cost is Shippey Rice.
Oh,
So
okay.
who should
Was
I
there an
bring
actual
this,
survey come?
survey to? Sam, you want it?
Go Bear Paw,
It should go to Bear Paw,
So we've got the,
Dan, yeah,
because that should all be kept together as one
as their costs.
package for them to come
Okay.
back to us with the final.
yeah, and maybe if they see that, then, it won't need to be a survey cost.
Yep.
Mhm.
I would.
What was the survey cost? So, for the, what was the
For yours?
Yeah.
Yours was, $39.95.
Oh,
That was that for just the survey, or?
That's just the survey.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So I guess I won't be able to put in landing strip.
No.
Do you guys remember when I had the newspaper and I?
Oh, and Celia,
Thanks to
I'll
those,
email
had an
you
article
about getting the kit
landing strip
back
in
to you,
Nottingham.
because I think you're
That's before
in
your
2
time.
weeks,
Yeah.
yeah.
Just drop it in the garage. whenever.
Okay, all right, I'll do that.
Yeah, 'cause Celia and I are scheduled to go.
The next,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Do we want to get into, I don't know, the Sylvia's gonna stay with the trail mapping, or she's?
Apparently not.
Apparently not.
Yeah.
Should we wait until Crystal's here for that, or?
We can do that if you want to.
Well, I think Crystal as well as Celia, and Celia had to take off, so
Mhm.
I think we delay that.
Shall we,
Yeah, and I think that's a longer,
Okay.
yeah.
It's getting late, too.
And it is getting late, and
And we haven't done the
I have to make
minutes.
a phone call before somebody goes to bed.
We gotta get up to that traffic tomorrow.
Do you want to postpone trail mapping until the next meeting?
Sure.
And we could do minutes?
Okay. Should we do the minutes of previous meetings?
Mm-hmm. Hold on. I have 3 copies.
I have
Paul,
one
do you have a
online.
copy? And Raylene, do you have a copy of the last minutes
No, I
to
don't.
review?
The ones you sent out
Yes.
today?
Yeah,
Got
they,
an extra
Oh, you
copy
do.
here if anybody needs it.
okay.
You got it on.
They got sent out late because our
I got
modem got
You got
fried
one?
over
I have
the
one on my
weekend.
computer.
You got one on your computer? Anybody else?
The tree, big giant tree across the way, Bob saw a fireball come down it. It just peeled off and threw some bark off, but otherwise the tree's fine. But modem, carbon monoxide detector, and I think something else.
So how are you able to, without the modem, how are you able
He got
to?
it fixed today.
Oh, you got it fixed today to get it?
Cell phones, unfortunately.
Just an FYI, that tree probably will croak in 3 to 5 years.
Oh my God, I love that tree. It's huge.
Because the damage to the inside of it and to the roots.
what tree is that?
Oh, it's my big white pine across the way.
Oh.
It's the one I want to bungee up, you know, sometime before I die.
Do it sooner than later.
Okay.
Because there was a big Norway spruce that was hit on campus, and that one.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't even think about the boiling sap on the inside of the tree.
Hmm,
But just
Wow.
also the root damage and stuff.
Goes right down in.
So, some of them live and some of them.
Yeah.
grow.
It wasn't very remarkable.
Do we have this?
It's huge.
I think I'm supposed to be doing
Well,
this.
maybe it's got enough bulk that it'll.
I think,
Do we have
Yeah.
the schedule for the water testing?
I do have a schedule.
I should be on it fairly soon.
I can pull that up, 'cause I don't think I. Okay, hold on. Map schedule. Yeah, I was gonna put a reminder out this week sometime.
Speaking of I see under the correspondence from last meeting, DES also requested information on the demonstrate need, avoidance, and minimization, least impacting alternative.
Yeah, yeah, and also from New Hampshire National Heritage Bureau.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah, those were missing from the application.
So 7:22, it's Celia, Cheryl, and Allison. And I have 8:5 is Sue and Liz.
8-5?
8:5. Did you
That
have that
weekend.
too,
Oh,
Liz?
no, I have it, I have it.
Okay,
For some reason, I
you're
had in my
okay
mind
on
it's
that?
gonna be September.
And again, you
But
can,
no,
you
I-
can go the Thursday, Friday, or Monday if a weekend is
Alright.
out or something.
Yeah.
And then 8:19,
Oh,
I have Celia with Raylene and Allison. Allison will be pretty good by then because that'll be her third one.
I should be an expert.
So, yeah. And then the only one, we're not sure how long we'll go out to. 9:2, it's myself and Heather. And then 9:15, it was Sam with a question mark. And then I didn't have anyone else at this moment. And you may not be able to do that, so.
I can do the 15th, I can't do the 16th or 17th.
Okay.
Yeah, Nottingham Day is around that time.
16th, yeah.
And so it might be, right, so we'll see how that works out. You know, last year we didn't, you know, if it has to be scratched, it gets scratched. That's fine.
So I know at one time you had possibility of Allison doing it on that weekend, and she'll be back in school, so she
Yeah,
can't.
so she could only do Saturday or
She could only
Sunday.
do Saturday or Sunday, and
And you can't do the
I can't do Saturday or Sunday.
Or Sunday, yeah. So unless it's somebody who's also able to do that on a Monday or Friday. If not, then you just, you know,
Yeah, okay.
do it. Or I could even go out another night following weekend, but we don't even, we may just cancel.
Some
Fine.
things went on my mind about this, the, transition of the road agent, and I wonder if we can give, input to the BOS, so like to Chris Sterndale about our, concerns or things that we would like to see considered in the application process or
Mhm.
skill sets.
Mhm.
Because we've observed a lot of challenges, and Johnny's been
That
great.
is, that position is being transitioned? So it's being transitioned to a, for crying out loud.
They're talking about cutting it into two positions, an administrative and like an
No,
engineer.
it'll be one position that
Oh,
will
they've
oversee
come
all of it.
back? Mm.
It would be great to, I think a lot of our things have been engineering issues,
Mhm.
maybe.
I know the planning
Or we
board,
could just compile all of the things that we've seen as far as like runoff or, invasive plants in soil and, culverts and, even making the roads wider and flatter for a line of sight, which makes daily road travel more dangerous than opposed to like the event of an emergency that might happen
mhm. Keeping
once
speeds
every 10
down,
years or
yeah,
something.
keep- yeah.
So there's a whole thing, a whole list that we've observed and that we've brought to the BOS over and over again. I wonder who.
And that should happen fairly quickly, cause I know that they are putting that job description for that together now, and that
is
they
even
will
like
be
the salt on the
advertising for
roads,
that.
like making sure the person
Yeah,
understands
John's
how
gonna
to-
retire before, October, I think, Columbus Day.
Would you guys want me to compile that
Yeah,
list?
yeah.
Because like the snow pro or use of salt, budgeting for,
Right. But also,
1,000-year floods.
ultimately, in addition to
Severe
the
weather
select
patterns.
board, also to the transportation, subcommittee at the planning board,
Mhm.
also looking into issues such as this.
Mhm.
And we've been taking pictures of Case Road, Berry Road, and Priest Road, and been sending them to all members of the committee, just showing where nicked trees and pushing dirt
Pushing
up
that dirt
against
up,
trees,
yeah,
or
Charles
digging,
Street Cross, right, I
yeah,
mean, yeah,
or digging down right next to a tree and not like this much.
right,
And eventually those trees are just going to die.
right, yeah.
Um,
And it wasn't always that way.
No, It's just been in the last couple of years. But also spreading of invasives.
Right.
So, yeah,
I just
Sure.
noticed
That sounds great.
knotweed by the
Email
post
to you
office.
guys in a
I'm
few
sorry?
Baby knotweed by the post office on 152.
Yeah, excellent.
There's
Our
one
old
by the
town has
sign
put
there,
knotweed on
um,
Garland Road.
Just before the post
Well,
office.
they-
It's been
that
there for a
whole
while.
stretch of
When they
Berry
put the
Road
sign in, they put in the
with
knotweed.
plantings were-
Bill, well, I'll pick it, I
If you
walked
drive
it.
down that road now, you will
Yeah.
notice the whole upper portion that they repaved, it's completely, all the shrubs are taken over by knotweed. The thing is, are all as high as this,
They actually didn't put it on the
And-
town road, they just-
yeah,
The what?
Oh, from the,
right.
yeah.
And, when I went by the town, where they keep the gravel over there, there's two big containers, and right behind two of those containers is two ailanthus trees that, do you know what an ailanthus
what's
tree
that?
is? Have come up there, and they weren't there last year. I mean, that is coming in with the gravel, wherever that
It's
gravel's
an
coming.
Atlantis tree.
An
It's called a
invasive.
tree of heaven.
Oh,
It's a
tree of
Chinese
heaven.
tree that's
Oh, okay,
pollution
that's on the
tolerant.
list.
It's mostly in cities like, you know,
Does it
Haverhill.
look like, does it look like a sumac?
Yeah, it looks like a sumac,
Okay.
has a very sort of leafy.
Yeah, I know what they are.
Yeah, and it has a lot of invasive insects that follow it too, that now,
Oh,
so.
great.
So, it's,
Hmm.
it's just really a problem. I actually checked my email that I sent you about the thing, because on the minutes, I had actually, you put it in the minutes, what I suggested, but in my email, I said that many of the largest trees closest to Quincy Pond are scarred by this, and I counted them on the way, there's like 30. And they've been scarred with scars that are so big, and a lot of them have actually come down already, and they're huge trees. And on a scenic road, it basically is how they get past the restriction, as they widen the road. And what they did is, they made these big pull-offs so that people could pull a truck over to one side. And so a person goes in there,
And park, yeah.
park, and then the people that are walking that road, which are a lot of the local people with their children and dogs, if a car comes down and there's really no room, so it's just made this whole situation really worse, and the road's 3 times longer. And it's supposed to be a scenic road, so it isn't just Case Road. And that's why I think, I don't know, you know, we should maybe amend the minutes and raise that issue that it's,
To include that large trees were nicked.
yeah, to include that large, what I said here is that many of them are scarred by the blades of the grader. Yeah, because they have huge holes. I mean, and it's right where and if you have to widen the road, you just keep, you know, going closer until you hit it, and then
Okay, I'll add that in.
they dump that. So, anyway,
Yeah, when I typed this, I didn't have
Mark,
access to my email to,
right,
all I had were my notes.
right,
So I just typed it, up from my notes rather than checking back.
yeah.
Um,
And I didn't tell anybody that Lauren has a Blandings turtle that came in, one of the biggest ones I've ever seen, and made a hole in the driveway at 9 o'clock at night. And
Right.
she put out these little things, and then, you know, she said, well, it's gonna be so many days before they come out, but then there was another one the next day, right in the middle of the road where the power line is, and they were grading that whole road, and I moved it to the other side, and then Mark came the next day.
Mark
And-
West?
Mark West came the next day after and found the turtle again and moved it over to closer to the power line so it wouldn't get hit. But there's
They
a
go
lot
where they
of
want to go.
landing.
Yeah.
There's a lot of landings up there, and I just think it's probably not good for them to make that road too wide and take all the trees out, because it's It's just an accident.
The, one of the
Slow down.
reasons for the,
Yeah, we can't get them to slow down, and we can't force it.
Well, the wider and flatter the roads are, the faster people will go.
That's my
Yeah.
real contention.
Well,
They keep making them wider.
Garland Road is
And-
not very wide, but we have people who go 50 and 60 miles on that road.
Yeah.
And we've come close to being.
They're coming down that road with big boats behind them, going to the
Right,
lake.
right,
They're
right,
coming
that's
from
even worse.
Deerfield, and they're using it as a, kind of, so, it's just not a good thing to make the roads wide. I really don't think, and it's, of course, it's right up against the
Who
Quincy
makes the
Pond.
decision to make those roads wider?
There's
the subcommittee for planning board is looking
Yeah.
into putting more restrictions on scenic roads for a warrant article possibly next spring to have them no wider than so many feet. So that's one of the things we're
Who
looking
determines
at.
scenic roads?
The state does.
Okay.
The state puts down the restrictions on scenic roads, but they're not very restrictive. People petition,
But there has to be a petition
People
from the
petition,
residents on the road to have
and they
that
bring
made
it to
a
town
scenic road.
meeting, and then that section is,
We make our road a scenic road.
Of
But
course.
also realize that as soon as your road is classified as a scenic road, your tax rates go up.
Yes.
I don't care. I'm tired of safety on our road. It's just,
It's too bad that somebody in a carriage has to get hit by a car.
particularly now that we have babies on
Yeah.
strollers going out there. It's
No,
not
this-
just people with dogs.
That-
I think that's a
It's two or
situation.
three
How we doing
couples
on
that are
these?
walking.
So the other
called
correction,
sidewalks,
correction
and
to the
they don't
minutes
have
is that, where was it talking about?
When it states, Ferry and Garland Road as, under dirt road work, the commission discussed scenic road maintenance noted the last couple of years, including Berry and Garland.
Garland is not
Garland's
scenic.
not designated as scenic.
It's gonna be.
all right, how about just dirt road maintenance?
Yep. Although Garland's not dirt, but
Road maintenance.
It's not dirt, it's not dirt anymore?
No.
Oh,
Garland isn't, yeah.
oh, how about just road maintenance?
well, it wasn't.
Road
It's
maintenance.
Nice and full of potholes.
So I've got a few, you want them?
Mm-hmm,
But it's
Well, okay, on the first page,
mm-hmm.
under conservation easements, you mentioned who attended that meeting, I was there too. Bottom of the conservation easement section.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Under road-
that was just from memory.
That's okay, don't worry. Same thing for roadside cleanup.
It's beautiful.
I volunteered too, and I did it.
And
And
Raylene,
when
and
you got
Raylene was
Raylene, it
not
should
there.
say-
Yeah, but this is before the
Right,
fact.
but it should
right.
say Shippey Rice, not
Yeah,
Raylene,
it,
you know what I mean, 'cause
says,
you were using all
You mean
last
the
names.
infamous Raylene isn't sufficient?
That's true, too.
So that's minor. On the next page, for the Marston project, that's why I asked Mark. The way this was written, it says the Lamprey River Advisory Committee is the agency that reviews wetland projects for the region for DES.
Mhm.
So that's confusing.
How about comments? is the
or
local-
another agent that, well,
Is one of the,
something-
is one of the agents,
see,
or
agencies,
that comments on
The
wetland
agency,
projects,
right.
yeah.
something like that.
and I wouldn't know that I'd call it an agency, I would probably call it a group,
Yeah, an organization.
organization.
Organization's good.
Under Lakes Congress. the
Hold
three-
on.
Oh, sorry, I believe, so I'm just trying to.
Comments on, okay.
these things sorted. Under the Lakes Congress, the 3 sessions I went to were on dirt road maintenance.
Mhm.
Second was on cyanobacteria. The
Mhm.
app was just one little thing,
Mhm.
one thing that he mentioned, and I brought that up to the group because it was.
All right, so just on cyanobacteria.
Cyanobacteria, and third one was on herbs, is correct. But if you wanted to say something about the app, you could add something in there about the co-op extension. Has helped to develop a new app for smartphones that lets people report and photograph algal blooms in the field in real time. I wrote it here.
Can I, okay,
I didn't really pass this on to you.
all right.
I have to leave them anyway. So I
See
wanted to just
Liz's.
get these packets to you about the property that I mentioned earlier.
You want me to bring it to the group? Because I took down notes from your email today. Or do you want to,
There are 4 copies of maps. Did I miss this email today? This was an email about a potential,
Is that-
wetland concern requirement.
that's it.
Yeah, that's it.
But based on what was told to me, I said, yeah.
Oh, I have
sent
to
an
see,
email
it's
to
all
everybody.
connected.
Stevens Road.
Should we do the minutes first, and then we can move on to
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
Do the minutes first.
So besides Liz's comments, I didn't see,
If you wanna
Actually, I think those are
revise
good.
them, revise them and then come back to us when we.
I must have come through after I checked email earlier today.
yeah. So, I mean, aside from, Liz was pretty thorough, and I think Paul had, so, are we good on
No,
minutes?
this is good, this is
Yeah,
good, as,
okay.
as corrected or as
So-
edited.
I move that we accept the,
Well, did you correct the part that I was talking about right after what she said?
Which is what?
The dirt road work?
I will,
Oh.
and I'll include, and large trees are scarred by
Oh,
road
okay,
equipment.
as long as they,
I've got it here to put in.
yeah,
And I took out the word scenic,
right,
just road maintenance. Okay?
okay.
so I'll move that we accept the June 12th minutes as amended.
Second.
And seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? The ayes have it.
So, this
Um,
was-
Should I take this?
Yep.
I don't think I need the other one. The email that Liz had sent out earlier today, she was, talking with Steve, what's his? Steve Sora, who lives on the lake, and he was talking with, the fellow that owns that large field along, Stage Road with, where he has cattle.
Yep.
Why can't I find my notes? It's supposed to be here. Oh, here we go.
Dayton property.
The person's name is Ray Bateman at 196 Stage Road, map 37, lot 12. He has 26 acres of field and woods along the North River. It has an assessment, and I'm assuming this means property only,
Well, if you, on that
not including the
handout
house.
that I have there, there's the copy of the photo of the map, there's the parcel map, and there's the tax card there, so you can see how it has it broken down to the land down
Oh,
here.
right.
So the farmland, the tax value is 7,409.
I'll show you on the way home.
And then there's something pine, unmanaged pine.
Oh, okay, so 91.7 is for the residential
Mhm.
tax value. Although I can't imagine why that farmland is not valued higher. Well, it is, I guess.
Assessed at $226,000. The current use tax as farmland and unmanaged pine forest gives it a value of 110.
So I think I wrote that wrong, because that
So what's
includes the
ad-
residence itself.
Ad valorem versus the tax value.
Well, it's under, is it current use and agricultural land, and that's the difference between?
You would get two different bills.
Okay, so as current use, it's valued at 7,400, but if it wasn't current use, it would be 34,000, is that correct? Okay, okay.
And the.
It'd be nice if we could do something
plus
for that
the-
property.
Okay.
Yes,
Oh,
226 does include the house.
yeah.
Right, so we're looking at,
So all of the land alone would be 226 minus
Right, and
91.7.
you'd have to see what the owner's looking for in this, because
Right.
if I'm not mistaken, this owner came to see us
Right,
several
he
years
did.
ago.
Yep,
yes.
Yep.
And wanted all this stuff, and wanted to be able to do whatever they wanted with the property, but wanted the money.
Really? I didn't have,
I haven't spoken to him.
Yeah.
I remember when he came, but I didn't get that
Yeah, no,
sense
there was-
somehow.
essentially, he wanted enough that, to be able, to pay the taxes, I guess, for the,
Right, because he had to retire early, or he got laid off or something, so he had to retire earlier than he
He
did.
wants his son to be able to live there on the land.
Right, and he wants enough money for the
Pay the
easement
taxes.
to be able to do all of that in perpetuity for the land, to pay the taxes, et cetera, on the land.
Oh,
We tried
really?
to
In
explain that
perpetuity?
An easement doesn't give you tax relief off of
Right.
it, it's,
I
and
must
that's,
not have been here, I have no
and that's
recollection of
when
that.
he
Yeah.
sort of.
I have no
Yeah.
recollection.
I don't remember the
So there was a
details,
bit of
actually.
a- I think it was-
I thought the
I
son
checked
didn't want the
with,
property.
with Bear Paw, and Phil Ozier looked at, apparently the soils map, and the soils map are not that
Right.
great.
They're not farmland
Yeah,
soils.
actually,
Not
that's what I
farm.
would say,
It's
because
all
I looked at
sand.
that property, I wanted to go over there and just look for wildlife, and it's complete gravel, and
Right.
it's
Yeah, the
really
pastures
not
aren't
soil.
as productive as
Right.
they.
But I mean, it's an okay for pasture, but it's,
Mhm.
it's
Yeah.
never going to be
It's not
a
farmland soils, no.
farm-
Never gonna
right.
be a farm.
Super
land.
farm
But
soils.
The value is this long border with the North River here.
Correct.
Mhm.
That's,
That abuts
Yeah.
Mulligan.
and that abuts
abuts
Mulligan,
Mulligan.
and which has access to Mulligan versus.
No, it does have that, yeah, the
I-
road, the
yeah, I think
roadway.
everybody
And
agreed.
the scenic quality of
Right.
Yeah.
adding
Right.
to the
I think
community.
everybody agreed at the time it was an ideal property to conserve.
It is,
It-
but it
but
has to see
at
what
what
kind of
cost?
agreement that the landowner is looking for and what the amount that the landowner
Right.
is looking for
Right.
on that.
So what do you,
And at the time, they were
Suggest that
looking
we have
for
But-
what?
Well, it
Yeah.
should be assessed for conservation value, number one, so we know what we're looking at.
I think if the person is interested, they need to come in and talk to us.
okay, that's what I wanted to say.
That's the first
Oh, yeah.
line. If they're
I did put in a
interested,
phone call
I
to
agree.
him today and left a message on the
Smart.
back.
that's it.
But I wanted you to tell me what.
They need to come
Whether
in,
he was
Avoiding
still
problems.
talk to us,
interested, right,
and
he
tell us
did,
what they're
right.
looking for, et cetera, and then we can make the recommendations to them that one of the first things they have to start with is that there has to be assessment on the property.
Mhm.
There has to be a true market assessment of value on the
They
property.
get that cost, or we do?
That's their cost.
Yeah, it has to be.
Yeah. And would we want Dan Kern to be in the same meeting, or not?
Not initially.
Well,
But it sounded like
if
he
it's,
had
if it's
visited the
true,
property before.
if it's true that he came in and, wasn't encouraged, it might be good to have somebody like Dan here, just to say, well, this is how things go, and this is what you
Yeah,
really
that's
need
what
to
I
do,
wondered.
rather than have him come against, the same bunch of people before and expecting,
A different result.
yeah.
I mean, another option would be, and I don't know if this makes sense, would be to have him contact Bear Paw and go and discuss it first with Bear Paw and then decide if he wants to
That
come
might be,
to us.
that might be a good route, especially where they like the North River corridor, area.
That would probably be a route
Yeah,
to go with them.
because maybe there is something that they can
Yeah.
do. It's not a lot of acreage, though,
Yeah,
so.
I know,
But it's
Phil
on the
was
river.
not-
I know,
Phil
but it's
Ozier
all-
was
but they're
not
trying to
encouraged.
conserve
He
that
didn't think
property along the river.
it
It's
would
a
fit
big-
under any program that.
Yeah,
that
very
all of
important.
us
The
have to come
quality of the
from-
habitat didn't fit.
The
Right,
source.
and I think at the
Okay.
time, we looked at WRP, and the WRP wasn't looking at this as being a property that they were
No.
interested in.
Right.
Okay.
But what about the scenic value and the access to Mulligan?
Well, I don't think that it's a question of whether we consider it a valuable property. I think there was
But
a
it's all
general
depends, would there
consensus
be,
that
what do you
it
mean,
was.
access to
It was.
Mulligan?
This
Yeah,
road
that
goes
is-
through?
That
That-
piece.
that-
So I mean, if we're talking about, public access to some of our properties,
Yeah, but preserving open space is important.
and it can be,
And that's
Yeah.
one thing that the landowner would have, they would have to have access across their property to provide
and I
access
guess
to
there were,
Mulligan.
according to Steve.
At that time, they weren't.
We've asked several times whether they've come back and been interested or wanted to pursue it, and there hasn't been any
Interest.
interest.
Possible,
All right, so there is,
so
that's what I wanted to find out.
there's a list
about
of
was what was
pluses
the
and
history of
minuses,
this.
So-
yeah.
But I
what-
think it's
what they
worth
should do is
pursuing.
If they are interested, then they can either contact Bear Paw initially and find out if Bear Paw is interested in working with them at all. If they aren't, they can still come to us but then we
Maybe
need to.
something has changed on their end.
Right,
which
and
will
then we can talk to
change.
Bearapaw and see if they're interested.
Would be a shame to see how something.
It would,
Yeah, no,
I don't think
Well,
anyone
the other-
disagrees
other
with that,
possi-
Liz. I think that was,
Other
I felt that
possibility
way
is
very
maybe,
strongly for years.
I'll take the
Forest
next
Society,
step
because
and
Forest
really
Society.
They've
owns-
never come
owns
back.
the
Yeah, that'd be
easement
good.
across the river.
uh-huh.
No,
That's okay,
fine.
Liz.
If, thank you, Liz. If they were willing to have that as an access point, because that would be a big plus, if they're willing to have, people,
Well, at
Trump
the time,
across
part of the
part
discussion
of that
was
field.
that the children were not at all interested in the property, and he
Yeah.
was interested in preserving and not having it go to housing development, but the children weren't interested in it. What was he gonna do with it? He needed to pay the taxes on it. It sounds like some of that has changed.
but just looking purely as pluses and minuses, the pluses would be the possible access to Mulligan, because it's
Right.
right there, and frontage on the North River, and the fact that it is open space.
That's right. And it does have a rural history that,
And
would
could
be
have
keeping
some
it, and not
houses
putting
pop up
20
there
houses
instead.
in there. Thank you very much.
Yeah. And rural is a very big deal in the master plan.
So it would be a good,
Space. And-
it would be a good property to keep. I
Drinking from
would
that
like
little
to see it.
pond.
So,
Well, at one time, the fire department was looking at a piece of that for the fire department, and it was too much water, down just below the surface.
Oh, yeah, the groundwater's right up there.
Yeah,
I know
Oh,
we
yeah.
all wanna go, I have these like 10 or 12 things about the road considerations. Who do I send it to? Do you guys just want me to send it?
Blank, everybody.
Okay.
Yeah, you can put it,
And then we'll send that off
Yeah.
to the meeting. Stan will send it off, or someone will send it
Yeah.
off.
are you gonna put it on as a Word document?
Sure.
I guess,
Whatever's
so
easiest.
a question that I have is that
Thank you.
maybe just running through the list right now, if everybody says the list looks good, and if we,
So it doesn't, it's not.
because we're not actually doing business via email that way. So right now, if we go through the list, we say, yes, that's everything that we want on the list, and we say, yes, you word something together, and if we all approve it, then it can be sent by Sam to the BOS.
Okay.
Because otherwise, we're conducting business via email, and that's
Can't
not.
do that.
okay.
So I just have invasive species, infill and through grading, culverts inappropriately sized and blown out, preparation for 1,000-year floods, which happen every 5 to 10 years now, runoff.
Actually, it's 100-year floods, I think.
100-year
Or
floods.
sorry.
100-year, not 1,000.
Runoff, that we've all experienced, so silt, and that goes with erosion. That the roads are made wide and flat, which makes, daily travel more dangerous. And I've witnessed so many turtles as far as Conservation Commission on roads. Budgeting for extreme weather patterns, so salting and sanding, with changing climate. You could have no snow or salt one year, and then you could have a deluge the next year. So that person should have an understanding of budgeting.
But also,
for municipalities for that.
But we're-
salting and sanding next to sensitive places like wetlands.
And then, that was next.
What did you say?
Salting and sanding, adjacent to sensitive wetland areas.
Yeah.
Oh, right, but
They'll
salting
use
and
less.
sanding in general,
Yeah.
decreasing, looking at
Right,
best
looking at
practices
best
lately,
practices
right.
and alternatives, yeah, definitely. Dirt up against trees prevents wildlife crossings and also chokes out, trees along the roads. Scarring on trees, erosion from, again, improper, not using best
Also cutting down
practices.
the road, not only in some places that they built the road up, but they've cut down the road. Next to Celia, there was a drop-off at the end of her driveway to get down to the road. So she had to ask John to bring in some fill. It was stepped, so that they've gone in and actually cut the road down maybe this much, right up against the trees that line the road.
Okay.
The-
Cutting down
Yeah.
erosion.
trenched it almost,
Is there-
trenched the road.
Is there any discussion of, this came up with my granddaughter the other day, we were moving turtles, about those underground, you talked about them, those underground
Well,
walkways
that's
for.
culverts, like, and that's what I talked to Mike Martian about, if you do the square culverts
Right,
that are 3 feet,
Mhm.
it promotes wildlife crossings, but it also prepares for 100 to 1,000-year floods, instead of the plastic.
so is that what you mean by
round.
culverts in
ones.
there? Should you clarify what you mean by culverts? Because if you don't, then
Yeah.
a culvert is a round tube that you stick under the ground.
New and replacement culverts.
Recommended by New Hampshire Fish and Game.
Right.
Yeah.
Is really
Open
how it
bottom.
should be worded, because the cost of digging up roadways that are fully functional with culverts that are currently fully functional is cost
Exactly.
prohibitive.
Right, but if
Right.
they are redoing the roads.
Right.
It costs a lot of money and doesn't come out right the first time, yeah.
So erosion, just the improper silt fencing and then building the roads up so high that, like, exactly what Mark just said, it's just crazy. And then the timing of grading, could probably do better with that, if it is Berry Road or if it is
Yeah.
turtle crossing season, we could do grading in April or August and not May through
Mhm.
July.
Or October, yeah. Mhm.
Mm.
I don't know, do you guys have anything, I mean, a lot of these, I tried to think of the things that we've already brought to BOS, so it's not a surprise. These are things that we've been talking about for years.
And you did say something about the invasive species, the cutting.
That was number one.
Cut, yeah, that's what I thought. I thought that was your first one, but I just wanted to double check.
Okay, I'll put this into a Word document and do I, as a letter? Do I
Mhm.
have the letter? Yeah. I'll send it tomorrow. I'll send
Do
it
we
to
need a
Sam.
motion?
I think, maybe just putting it together as a bulleted list
Mhm.
with that, and then
Yeah. bullet.
Sam could put the letter together and say,
Okay.
these are concerns that the Conservation Commission has discussed with the Board of Selectmen and with an upcoming change in
Yeah,
the
that's
road
better.
agent becoming a, I'm forgetting what they're calling that now, it's not a town engineer, I don't remember. Public Works Director,
Could be.
perhaps?
Mhm.
I don't remember, I don't
Okay.
know.
Hmm.
Okay.
So I make a motion that Kristen put this document together, forward it onto the group with any comments for us to fill in, edit, and then the final version, Sam can forward that along with the cover letter to the Board of Selectmen.
Sounds like a good
There
plan.
was there a second?
I'll second it.
Good.
25
Okay.
seconds.
Any further discussion?
Good.
Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? The ayes have it.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, still have 7. I have, a request to be reimbursed for the wetland, all-day workshop that Mark hosted back on June 23rd, 2017, and the fee for participation was $60.
Okay.
I make a motion to reimburse Sue the $60 for the workshop that she attended in June.
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank
Anybody
you.
opposed? Anybody abstain? Okay, the ayes have
I'll
it.
abstain.
Oh, you'll abstain, okay.
Were you the only one to go to that, Sue?
From town, yes, but there were,
Quite a few people there?
yeah, almost 20 people, I
Wow.
think. Quite a few from DES, but from the area.
Yeah.
Wow.
He was really excited.
Yeah, it was a
Yeah.
good, it was a really good day. I learned a lot.
Going up there.
I do have a couple correspondence I forgot to put down.
I have to leave.
Okay, there are 2 notice of intent to cut. Map 76, Lot 2,
Mhm.
in the state of New Hampshire. Mountain Road, from Mountain Road,
Is this for the park?
yeah. There, the acreage is 4,844.
You shouldn't have looked.
And their acreage of cut is 100.
Is there a date on that?
Ding, 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 ding. It was received.
5/16.
Okay, it was received 5/16.
Okay, that's good enough.
Via email. How did they do that? Signed 6/12/17. Oh, that's the assessing official. Never mind. Okay. The second one is for the Mendon's Landing properties. Acres of lot is 50.64, and they're cutting 45. Anticipating starting in June.
What, do you have a map and lot number?
I got a bunch of them. Map 5-2, lots 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, and 27.
So 20 to
That's meant-
27.
Lower.
How about
That's Mendon's
20?
West.
20 to 27?
20 to 27,
Yeah,
okay.
and map 5-7,
5-7,
lots 0 through 6.
6, okay. So 50.64 acres to cut 45.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're gonna see this change when we monitor.
Yeah.
CE,
In fact,
okay.
I think I've seen some trucks coming out of there already.
Was that it?
No, I got one more.
Okay, DOT?
The DOT, I write this letter to you as notification that the sponsor highway program in District 6 has changed to become more similar to the other state districts. District 6 is comprised of 12 patrol sheds, and your section falls within one of those sheds. From now on, whenever your group needs supplies, you must contact the patrol shed directly. Supplies are already stocked at the sheds, and it's just a matter of calling and asking for them to be placed outside for pickup. If your group currently has supplies, please return to the shed. We now are under the local patrol shed at 1159 First New Hampshire Turnpike in Northwood.
So you used to go to Durham,
wow.
didn't you?
Yeah, and when I was down there the
Really?
last time, he thought I was gonna go to the Pinkham Road one in Lee. But apparently that changed. That was the guy I talked to, but it wasn't the
So that'll be close for you now.
Not much difference.
No?
This patrol shed is the other side of Co Brown,
Okay.
which is it's about 6 miles away from my house. Going down the circle is 7 miles, and then another 9/10 of a mile out to Pinkham Road. So
All right, well,
it'd be shorter than going to the Durham office.
Durham one, yes.
Yeah.
It'll be better than Durham.
It also have supply lines and a thing from Woodard and Curran about the direct whatever.
Okay. I have a quick thing. This is in the weekly market bulletin for this week. Conservation Moose Plate Grant funds available. They will take applications up to September 15th. I kind of wondered if we might want to think about this for purchasing or erecting a kiosk up at Mulligan to replace the one that doesn't work anymore. Put the kiosk further into the woods so the map and directions won't get faded in the sun. Then
Well, it would also be important to put the map and et cetera on the side that the sun is not on the kiosk.
That's true.
Yeah.
But also, if it's not prohibitive, think about maybe a sign for John Ternenko's 107 acres. That would be nice.
We also could use
Would you-
one, we need one for the Kennard property.
And what about when the,
Pawtuckaway Woods.
Yeah, we could, but it was just a thought.
Yeah.
So we can talk about this at the next one.
Okay.
Due?
September 15th.
Yeah, so
They're due on September 15th. I can send out the information on
Send
the
it via email.
websites, and you can just check out things
once
yourself.
September comes around, it's all over for me. Probably
Oh,
won't
yeah, and we've only got 1 month until
Right.
the deadline, so,
keep- yeah.
so I'll send that out to everybody
About 2 months.
to con.
And can I see that?
Sure. Sorry, Zan.
And,
So do you need approval for that, or a vote for that, or a motion for that, or?
No, I'm just gonna send you information so you can take a look at
One other
it.
thing we have to
No,
consider.
but to make, apply for that or
is
whatever?
Nottingham Family Day,
It's not Family Day anymore, it's just Nottingham Day now.
just Nottingham Day.
Yeah.
We still plan on having a table.
Yeah,
Okay. And we no longer have our pump up working, right? 'Cause the frame
I thought you were
broke.
gonna get it
We
replaced.
need to get a new one.
Well, yeah,
Do we-
somebody was looking into it, and I haven't.
We
I
can,
thought it was you.
okay, you want me to look into it, Sam?
Yeah.
I can look into it and then go ahead and
I mean,
get something.
I know,
Yeah. happy to do that.
Do we need a motion for that?
No, we can probably take it out of
Just take it
the
out of the existing.
budget. I know, Dick's Sporting Goods has some for $49.95, but
You
they're
just
marked
don't wanna
down.
get the super
Go-
cheap ones
Go a
because,
little bit more and get
Yeah.
something that's
Well, this
gonna-
one is supposedly reduced from 99 something, so.
Dick's,
whatever
where
that-
is
Whatever.
Dick's Sporting
I
Goods?
don't think we have to worry too much about, I
Yeah.
don't know where we are in our budget, but we don't spend a lot of money out of our regular budget.
Oh, we can move things around on it too, so.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
I make a motion to adjourn.
You beat me.
Quick question, sorry.
Yeah.
A second.
How is the overall budget for the Conservation Commission for easements?
For
Once we
easement?
spend 50 for John, we'll have 60,000 left. You're talking about the Conservation Fund?
Right.
Yep, 60,000.
That's including the,
Well, yeah, maybe a little bit less depending on what if there's any. other
Survey that's
Survey.
needed.
Yeah, and
costs.
one of those things I'd written down, $4,000 was estimated for survey. I'd
For what
look in the
survey?
minutes, but
But then
it,
Dan said these costs would increase. We
Right.
had that email on costs
Correct.
would be
For-
higher.
for the Shippey Rice property, there was already a set cost for it. For
Okay.
The
So
other two
that's-
properties, they both said TBD for survey.
yeah. I have to look into that,
So
so.
the Shippey Rice was a set fee of 4,000, roughly.
Right, roughly. And the
Okay,
others-
that's the one I saw then.
Correct.
44.
So it's really Kennard that hadn't been surveyed that will probably be the most?
Probably.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because
what-
Chernyenko looks like there may not
Are
be.
you voting to adjourn, Paul?
So if the,
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Night, everybody.